And teams are versatile enough to do that. And I'm like, look, Chelsea, and number two, stop running offense by a person that run it through the point guard, no way offense. They give like the Shaq. The flavor, someone
No. And that ain't gonna cut it deep in the playoffs.
But they might win it off just being healthy alone.
Maybe.
Listen, babe. Oh, yeah. It's alright, alright, alright. Listen, babe. Oh, yeah. It's alright, alright, alright. Listen, babe. Oh, yeah. It's alright, alright, alright. Listen, babe. Oh, yeah. It's alright, alright.
Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. This is going to be a good, really good class.
What's good?
How you guys doing? Hopefully everybody's okay. I know you guys can go through your greeting. Hey, what's up? How you doing? You know, I read the text, so I know that first 2 or 3 minutes, everybody's just doing the introduction. What up, y'all? What up, Ayana? Hey, what's up, Eric? Anyway, hopefully everybody's okay. This has been an interesting week. No mask. Mask come off. I will say this. I think this is behavior science. Like this whole year and the following year, and maybe even another year after that, for people who are in behavior science, it's really going to unlock a lot of the cold behavior of culture, especially local culture, because you're getting so many study samples. You know what's interesting is that the mask thing. I went to the gym today, and the sign on the door says, "If you've been vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask." So I got the Pfizer, so I went to the gym smiling, went in there, had a good time working out. So then I get home, and a family member is talking about how they went to Trader Joe's, and they felt pressure to put on a mask because everybody was still wearing a mask. Now, on the outside of these businesses, they have a sign that says, "Hey, if you've been vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask." But she said the pressure was so strong that she just said, "Fuck it, I'm gonna wear a mask." And I laughed at her. Of course, I thought it was funny. So then I went to Greens and Grains to get a salad today, which is the most liberal area in Alameda, and walked inside the store, big warehouse space, and everybody had on a mask. Of course, I didn't have no goddamn mask on. But part of the reason I have a goddamn mask on is because at the end of the day, I realized there's a message behind that. Because I saw black people walking in there with masks on. And I realized that the only reason people were wearing masks was because they don't trust science. See, remember they told us we should wear a mask because we should trust science, right? So those same people, when they say the science says take the mask off, they're like, "I don't know if I trust you." Which is kind of funny, right? So you really weaponize science. You didn't really believe in science. But let's keep going. But you know what I thought was interesting? I was just train go by. He did that hole right there. But you know what I thought was interesting? Is a lot of folks are pressured to comply. And I don't think we realize how powerful culture is. And you might say, when you think of culture, sometimes you think about black folks like we're on an island. But in America, what is it, 1 to 7, right? Black to white. That means most of the culture that we're exposed to is white folks' culture. You might say, well, now, is this a revolution, pro-black class? No, that's not where I'm going. White people and black people are on a different level of performance. If there's a performance scale, we're at different levels of that performance scale, right? So white folks are at this point of the performance scale. It's not about fairness. This is where they are. Black people, we're down here on a performance scale. Let's not worry about fairness. It's just what it is. And it's not an attack. It's not an insult. And it's no regret. It just is what it is right now. Right? If that's the case, that means that we should be paying attention to white folks during the 40s and the way they develop business more than we should be paying attention to white folks in 2021 developing businesses. Because the trends of developing businesses right now have different motivators than a business that is trying to sell a product and yield immediate return as far as a profit. So what do I mean by this? So we live close to Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley is not playing business games similar to a small business would play business game. A lot of times Silicon Valley's, they're building products that are not yielding immediate profit. There's no profit. There's no profit. What they're trying to do is they're trying to corner the market free of competition. So they're trying to expand so large, such a strong reach, that they can have that whole market cornered and then charge, but because they have no competition, that means they get the chance to reap all the benefits. So that's a different business model. That's a different way of thinking about business. If you open a corner cafe or a corner clothing clothing company or whatever, you need immediate returns. You don't have that kind of financial backing for you to corner the market, right? And so you kind of have to be like, I think about white people during the pioneer stages or during after World War II. They were a very maverick culture, very strong, focused culture. The women and men both were very, very strong. Today, they're very fragile because of, we've been this 1,000 times. This is social justice and so forth and so on. But we're joining their fragility. We're not making a separation saying that's where they need to be. What do we need to work on? If we live by their patterns and their structure, then we're underserving our needs. We have needs that require a different rhythm than they are in. It's not good or bad. It's no. I'm not going to get into the silly game of, well, the reason why we're here. Why we're here is why we're here. And I can get to that another time. You can catch me off when I'm not in this class. But if we're trying to move things forward, we got to accept it for what it is. And if we're here, what should we be doing with our time as opposed to what they're doing with their time? Well, here's the problem, and this is what the mass thing brought back to me. Quite often, we're so busy trying to align with them, be like them, or unconsciously being manipulated by their cultural rhythms, we're not showing up to our own needs. And so if we understood our own needs and the responsibilities and the efforts that's needed to drive ourselves into a different position as a culture, we would move different. We would think different. We would process different. We would have different values, similar to like certain Jewish cultures, certain Asian cultures, certain Muslim cultures, certain Latin cultures. They don't move. They may be in America with you, but they have a group of different values that are motivating what they do, how they show up, what they're supposed to do with their time. Where should their sacrifices lie? Where should they put in extra effort? When white folks go home, they may have to stay an extra 4 or 5 hours. And it is what it is, man. You can't live with resentment. Resentment will poison the water, right? I don't want to amplify, I don't want to suggest there's any resentment. What I'm trying to suggest is that we have to become aware that we're black. And we have to become aware that we are a part of a continuum and that we have needs that might be different. And we can't only express those needs when we sense racism, but we have to express those needs when we say to ourselves, what are we supposed to be doing with our lives today? Where are we going? What is our intent? What do we want to achieve? We can't take their story and make it our story. We can't take their practices and make it our practices. And I'm not talking about being rebellious. I'm not talking about being disruptive. I'm not talking about black against white. I don't have any interest in that. That's not what this class is for. I'm saying we are leaving our gardens unattended because we're so busy playing in their front yard with them. And we need to focus on what we need to serve. Otherwise, even in our support of their vision and their dreams, we're still not we're not supplying our vision and dreams, and that's my concern. And so, and y'all might say, well, why is that such a big thing? Y'all, I think one of the failures of the crack era is the crack era was a cultural collapse, and because it was a cultural collapse, a lot of our children went to television to be parented. A lot of our children went to television to discover normality, right? What is normal? But they didn't realize the normal that they were discovering wasn't our normal. It was their normal. We were going through a crack epidemic, which was devastating. I think Shabisha used the best word. Somebody pulled out a Uzi and sprayed our community. That's how much impact it had upon us. And yet we were still dreaming because of the pain, the struggle, and the collapse of our culture. And I think the collapse was also the conscious movement. Because the conscious movement had the ball, they were running, and they dropped it, right? So you had the conscious movement collapse, and the crack era collapses. And so then we turned to other sources to learn about what is the world, what's happening around us. And we didn't realize that those stories didn't come without propaganda. And the propaganda set a standard in values and beliefs that we never sat down and said, should we believe in this? Or are we just following this because at the end of the day, we want to be part of the bigger cultural group? You know what I mean? You don't want that? And so the mass just kind of brought that to me. I just want to, you have to stop and ask why and consider where are you going and why are you going there. Otherwise, you can spend your whole life chasing a fairy or chasing a make-believe idea, right? Because you're like the saying, which is when a dog catches the car, what is he going to do with it? Many of us are chasing these cars, and if we get it, what are you going to do with it? And so we have to ask ourselves, where are we going with this? It's just like it's like I have a friend right now, he's worth $15 million. And he's into I gotta save. He's super frugal. And I just want to tell him, you're going to die, bro. You're going to die. You gotta find a balance. You can't be so money focused as if at some point it doesn't mean anything anymore. It just doesn't mean anything. You might just take the whole $50 million and build you a house where you can't leave and no one can get in and they can just sit in this oblige. Because that's almost how you're carrying yourself. Because your belief is, I just got to get more. But for what? And I'm not saying not have more. It's different if you say, hey, I want to get more because I want to build these institutions that I think that long term could be greatly impacting on our culture. But you're just gathering money for the sake of gathering money. You have to ask yourself that crazy question. So anyway, that's me just breaking off. I'm gonna get into this class. Oh, also I want to acknowledge. Did you see Veronica sent us a story about her being Puerto Rican in this country? I just want to say this real quick. Veronica, this is for you real quick. For those of you who read the article, it's in the portal. First of all, it was a well-written article. I loved everything she said. Not some of the stuff she said, everything she said. But I think it's just only just so I don't ever want meaning-making machines to enter conversations. So I just want to share with you my position and my understanding and the story I tell myself, and in hopes that it could bring some clarity and maybe some enlightenment. I'm super pro-black, for those of you who don't know. Maybe some of y'all ain't noticed yet, but I'm super love of black people. But I'm also a Pan-Africanist. I love all black people, all over the world. But what I've discovered in being a Pan-Africanist, when I first became a Pan-Africanist, I started reaching out to Jamaicans, Puerto Ricans, Haitians, Nigerians, Ethiopians, Eritreans, because I was excited. Hey, brothers and sisters, and everybody was like, yo, I ain't your brother and sister. I said, okay, at least you know you're black. I'm not sure if I'm with that. Okay, you African? Some of them say, yeah. Jamaicans like, fuck no, I ain't no fucking African. And you realize that there was this big conference, I think it's called the Belgian Conference, when white folks worked to separate. At one point, we kind of called ourselves the same thing, and then after a while, they worked on dividing us by titles and names, right? And you realize that as African Americans, I run to you, hey, brother, what's happening? And I went to Washington, D.C. I went to Washington, D.C. when I was 32. So that's 20-some years ago. 20 years ago. And I was walking through Washington, D.C. like, yo, what's up, brother? And it's just finally, and nobody would speak to me. Everybody looked at me like, what the fuck are you talking to me? So I finally went to sister. She had locks in her hair, and I said, "Yo, sis, how come nobody's recognizing?" And I said, "What's her brother?" Sister, she goes, "Yo, we don't fucking know you. Who the fuck are you?" I'm like, "Yeah, but we black." She goes, "Yeah, but like here we might say, 'What up, nigga?' But we ain't say, 'What's up, brother and sister?' That's some shit y'all doing on West Coast or New York or some shit, right?" So then you realize, what's the name? The rapper said, "It's not where you from, it's where you at." And what I eventually started to develop is blackness is a state of mind. You could be darker than me, and historically, darker you were, when dark people wanted to escape blackness, they would act more white than anybody else, and a light-skinned person often sometimes would pass, right? And so what you discovered is that blackness is a choice. I can't force it upon you. I can't even get mad at you if you don't want to be black. But if you're Puerto Rican and you say you black, then fuck it, you black. If you're Puerto Rican and say you're not black, you're not black. The guy I talk about in this class who taught me how to read every day, who's still one of my closest friends, whose son is like my actual nephew, he's Puerto Rican, 100%. Not Puerto Rican, mama, daddy, Puerto Rican. He's a black Puerto Rican. We ride. But I also know when we meet some people in his family, they don't really fuck with me like that. And I'm not mad at that, right? What I'm saying is I think when I read our article, I think it's really complex because there's a meaning-making machine happening on both sides. And what I try to do is if you say you black, you black. You say you not black, you not black. Matter of fact, y'all want to be cold-blooded. This is my opinion. This ain't got nothing to do with no facts. Do not take notes. It's just my opinion. You know the white woman that they shamed that was part of the NAACP? Yo, no, let me keep it 100 though. When I watch how she's putting the work in and how she's committed her life to it and got kids in the whole 100 yards, man, leave her the fuck alone. That's how she want to ride. She's showing up supporting. Why y'all mad about that? Oh, cultural appropriation. Man, are y'all fucking serious? Like, I don't have no beef with her. I have no beef with her. Like, yeah, she started lying, and there's some degree of insanity there, right? But but the thing is, how you gonna let somebody call themselves transgender? You won't let her call herself black.
All right, okay, well, all right.
So in the end, I'm saying, like, I'm not saying that, and the cold part says there are black people who far from being black, who are born next door to you, and they don't give a shit about this black shit. And there's black people who ride with black culture, and there's black people who are really extremely in black culture, right? But what I'm saying is that it's such a confusing conversation, even when we're amongst our own. I mean, like your neighborhood own, your own family is confusing. So I think when my brothers and sisters come here from, whether it's Puerto Rico, Haiti, Dominicans, right? Dominicans is confusing. Some Dominicans ride with you. Fucking most dark Mexicans are African mixed. And some will ride with you. The Afro-Mexican will ride with you. And but there's certain Mexicans who are dark just like you and will not fuck with you. Same like India, right? India is a black Asian mixture. Some Indians are cool with black folks. And some Indians don't talk to black folks, right? And I can't just automatically project that. I have to receive that. It's not my call to make. If you say that's who you are and you showing up to that, I'm gonna ride with you. Right? And we know the difference between that person saying black, like the black dude that work at corporate America who think he's black, but he's more white lenient or he's more white servant. I want to just be very clear that I see Veronica as a Puerto Rican woman. I never really seen her close up to look at her face that close. But I don't care if she's super light or super dark. My daughter's grandmother, if she walked in here right now, you think she's a white woman, but she's the blackest person you're going to ever meet. I dare you challenge her. That's Shakira's mom, right? And Shakira's mom, she was mixed, but she looks more white than black. To the point that all the kids always think she's a white woman until they get older. But I've never seen her as being a white woman because she's held a black position since I've known her. She's more militant than I am, right? And so all I'm arguing is that once she tells me she's black, she was my sister as a Latin woman because I think that's, like, and we grew up in the black community, we didn't really have that line between us and at least when I grew up. I don't know what your generation did, but where I grew up, black folks and Mexicans and Latinos and people from different islands, we were all cool. My closest friend was Belize, right? So we didn't really have that issue because we had a similarity in our beliefs and our families were cool like that. And even I just went to a party the other day, and it was like every race, there was multiple trans. This one transgender woman fucked me up because she was tall, and she had a short skirt on, and she had a mask on, so you couldn't see none of that, none of this. And I didn't know until she walked up at me. She said, "Yo, what up? You need?" I said, "Hold the fuck up!" And like, but if you saw her, like, there's no way in the world. But she hit me with the man voice, and I said, "Okay, you won on that one, right?" And it wasn't like, nobody was flirting, but it was just one of those things where, like, the other transgender women, they were obvious they're transgender, so because it was a big ass art event, and it was like 40,000 square feet of just art and all these art events, right? So as artists, we don't really have those kind of issues with diversity, right? It's just that's what our world is. But as far as my opinion or the way I see culture is that I accept you for who you want to be, not for who I want you to be. And I think once I start asking you, or once I start projecting on you, it creates too much tension, and it becomes disappointing for me. So if you're a dark-skinned black person and walk in this room with African features and you start talking like a valley white girl, I'm gonna let you be who you're gonna be.
Yeah,
and I'm out.
yeah.
I'm not gonna waste any time with that conversation. So anyway, all right, y'all ready for some heavyweight psychological shit? Plus we got some new exercises that this is the last week. Marquita, is this last week before we out? One more. We got one more? Oh, okay. Okay, so cool. I want to go back over something real quick. We brought up this thing called radical responsibility. This is really a deep down DNA characteristic of an entrepreneur. This is a deep down characteristic of an entrepreneur. Why is it so deep? We didn't create this class to be tactical leaders, right? And we just can't. It's not possible. Any business class cannot be a tactical leader because there's so many variations of tactics. Like tactics you use, I don't use. You move merchandise, I move service. So there's many tactics we just don't really share, right? Now, so if somebody came to me and say, "Hey, Nana, I'm doing retail. What do you think the best strategy for this A, B, and C?" There's so many variations of possibility, and I think it underserves you to answer that question in this forum quickly, right? It requires insights, analysis, and I'm sure if you were able to sit with Court, you'll watch this dynamic math that's always happening where things are always adjusting that changes his decision making. This class is created to amplify learning, psychologically get yourself out the way, increase awareness, and create the mindset of an entrepreneur. Now, once you have those things, when you have those questions, some questions, just go look them up. Like somebody came to me the other day and said, "Nana, how do you build a system org, or org chart?" Look it up. That's what entrepreneurs do. Because one of the things about entrepreneurs is that we're resourceful. We learn to go find things. One of the greatest gifts to entrepreneurs was the internet. We was like, "Oh my God, are you serious? I don't have to drive to Sacramento to sit down with Mr. Johnny to find out how to build an org chart. I can just or go to a library where there's hella books. And that organization is hella hard. And the books that may have the answer has this leather copy and it's buried between 3,000 pages. I don't have to do that no more. I can just literally pull up through an index system and actually figure out what the fuck is going on. Oh my God, right? YouTube was like, "You kid me. You fucking gotta be kidding me. It's this easy."
It's the Matrix.
And then Instagram came around and said, "You mean I could just call," and Twitter said, "I could just reach out to the actual dude who's killing this, and on his downtime, he'll give me some insight or point me to some directions?" But this is not the thing that is clouding Black progress. It's not the information. It's the mindset and how we're processing ourselves and how we're seeing the world and how our emotions are shaped and our emotional rigidity and our emotional immaturity and our emotional lack of awareness and our principles, the principles we understand in this world, how we defining the stories we tell ourselves and all these kind of our belief systems, all these things are stealing from the information. Meaning that you can get the same information we can go to the same university, get the same information to the same people, but what we extract and how we apply it, it is completely different. Absolutely, absolutely different. And so this class is to, one, accelerate your learning. So you might be like, I'm a good learner. No, you're probably not. We're going to turn your learning skills up. Meaning you can read the books, but learning is an art, right? And also accelerate change. Change is a complex thing. It's an ongoing practice. But many of us don't even engage the practice because we're avoiding the friction of change, right? And friction of change, that's a whole different conversation. If Shabisha was here, she would participate. But I think Shabisha is talking to maybe somebody. But anyway, so, she's working the front door? Shabisha's working the front door? Okay, yeah. Anyway, so what I'm arguing is that radical responsibility, going back to radical responsibility, that's a superpower for us. I don't think you guys understand. It's the hardest thing you're going to ever do. Well, not the hardest, but one of the hardest things you're going to ever do in this entrepreneur journey, and it's a fucking superpower. It's going to turn your learning skills up to number level 10. 2, when you take radical responsibility suggests that even if it's not your fault, it's your responsibility. Even if it's somebody else's responsibility, it's still your responsibility. But let me help you out even go a little bit further than that. Who you are and all your flaws will shape who your team is and all their flaws. Let me say this again. Who you are and all your flaws will shape who you are and all your team flaws. So if you walk into a business and you grow a team around you, your flaws will impact the way the team engages, collaborates, and moves forward. There's another principle that says that the most realist team will always win. That's horrible paraphrasing. It's better paraphrased some other way, but pretty much the more real your team is, the higher they will perform. But what happens in most work environments is we start to fall into this space of being false or illusional, or we start lying a little bit. We start making false promises. We start telling ourselves these stories. We start to get to a point where we point fingers, we blame other people. So let me explain to you what would happen if you're a leader that's not radical, you don't practice radical responsibility. And I'm gonna show you, well, first of all, let me show you the benefits. So let's say something happens in your business and your employee makes a mistake. And you say, listen, I see the mistake. If your brain goes, I'm gonna accept radical responsibility, your brain gonna say, what could I have done different in this business to give Court the highest opportunity to perform? You won't say to yourself, Court fucking up. The difference in your response is going to be, hey, listen, what happened? The person will say, well, this happened. What can we do to help you succeed? The employees will say, oh my God, I'm in an environment that supports me to grow. But let's say I play the blame game and become the other person. This is a small example. I can run so many different branches of why radical responsibility will destroy your business, and it's a cost to not being radical responsible. But let's say I invest in a solution that makes Court's job easier. Court's going to say, I love working here, and Court's going to feel comfortable to talk to me about stuff because he doesn't get jammed up as you're flawed and your fault. But let's say my company is based upon me not taking responsibility, but I blame everybody. Court, this didn't happen because of you. Shabisha, this didn't happen because of you. Fern, this didn't happen because of you. Guess what's going to happen? You guys will start practicing gossiping and lying. So wait a minute, how'd you get there? Because it's easier to defer blame or shift blame. The way you defer and shift blame is by either gossiping or lying. So for example, let's say I come for you, Fern. I say, Fern, I need to talk to you. Be like, yo, did you hear what Shabisha just did? So now we started practicing gossiping. The cost of gossiping in a business is fucking huge. You know why? Because it brings down morale, creates separation, destroys the conveyor belt systems and the patterns in your company, and the cost that goes along with that is your team starts to underperform even with the highest level of effort. And then on the back end, your customers suffer, and your customers start to feel the blame game. But when you have radical responsibility, I'm talking about radical responsibility, then what happens is that you teach people to own, your team to own when something goes wrong and take responsibility to fix it, show up to it, communicate to the team, and that in itself starts to build a certain amount of, what's the word I'm looking for? First, team candor goes up, and number two, team respect goes up because everybody's owning their part of responsibility. But that starts for the leader first having radical responsibility. Two, last thing before you jump in, let's go back to that same team. I come to the meeting and I'm expressing radical responsibility. You know, guys, this went wrong. One, I think what I should do different and what I'm not showing up to and what I think the company could do better and start with me first is, and I go A, B, and C. What I'm also doing in that process is I am teaching the team that if you have a problem, take ownership, communicate it, and also be able to say, hey, man, I think this is what went wrong. You're like, oh, my God. It's almost like we improve our communication to become more real. We're a little bit more honest about who we are, right? But when you don't have that radical responsibility, we will never get there. Really, like, you remember that old phase when you walk down the office, you're like, how you doing? I'm doing great. Things going good? Okay, good. And that same person would backstab you, like, what the hell just happened? That's because you created an environment where the leadership is not being responsible for the decisions they make or what's happening around them.
Yeah, I love this shit. A few things. If you are making a transition between employee to entrepreneurship, you're literally making the transition from dog to wolf. And radical responsibility is one of the key differences between a dog and a wolf.
Come on, man, talk to him.
So there is scientific videos and evidence that show. There's a video out there I watched, dope as fuck, is that they took a dog and a wolf and they took some food and they put it in like a cage that was impossible to get to. So the owner let the dog go. The dog went crazy trying to get into the food, but he couldn't. At a certain point, every time the dog looks back at his owner, signaling, yo, I need help. Help me. I can't do it. Whenever they let the wolf go, every wolf, that motherfucker wolf would not quit trying to get it because he didn't have nobody to turn back to. He didn't have nobody to look around and ask for help with. That's the key difference between a dog and a wolf, an employee and an entrepreneur, someone who takes radical responsibility. And that's how we got to get. That's how you got to get. So when I transitioned from employee to entrepreneur, I had HR, I had a manager, I had time clock, I had all this shit that was set up, that was supposed to happen, and if it didn't, I had someone to go to. I had team members, all kind of. As an entrepreneur, you got to take responsibility for it. Now, a couple things are going to leave when you start transitioning to radical responsibility and entrepreneur mindset. So a couple words is going to leave your vocabulary. And that's when you know you pretty much fucking there as a wolf. And that's the question, why? Why? Why, God? Why, God? Why is this happening? Why you do that? Why you do that? Why is this always happening to me? Man, why? Why? That leaves.
That's gone.
Shit it is what it is. Or you ain't think about that shit because you think about what can I do to get where I want to go regardless of what's happening. And that is like, and I've been there too. When you first enter that radical responsibility wave, it gets overwhelming. And soon it can be like too much of a wave and it can be a depressing, self-defeating, like, fuck, I'm just a fuck up. Everything's going wrong and now it's all my fault. Fuck, I'm just a fuck up. That's the typical easy response to when you first enter in this space. So you have to learn to move the scale of responsibility, but you don't let it get to depression or self-defeating behavior because shit is what it is still. But that is the place you want to be in. If you want to spend 5 minutes in your space, like, God damn it, shit, get back to, okay, what can we do? What can we do? And that's That's the really the vein of the wolf, the vein of the entrepreneur.
Like, do you realize people won't invest in you if you don't show radical responsibility? If somebody who's mature in business and they ask you something, you go, well, this happened because they didn't let me, or this didn't happen, or this was missing, or I didn't know about this, or they supposed to tell me. You start any of those spaces, or let's just say the competition came and they called the police, and the police came and they wouldn't let me get out the door, and so I couldn't even get to my last job because the guy played a trick on me. The investor's like, we're done. This conversation's over because you're not taking radical responsibility. Radical responsibility is, do you understand the game you in? Do you understand the challenges that are coming? Why don't you have a plan for that? And the way you learn faster is, let's say somebody did play a crazy trick on you. In radical responsibility, when it's over, even if they're wrong, if you sit down and go, okay, I'm gonna take responsibility, the next thing is, so what could I have done different? That's the power.
Yep.
That's the power. What could I have done different? And now, 10 years from now, people will say, Nana, it's like you always win. I only got here because I started practicing radical responsibility 10 years ago, and I developed so many invisible strategies, things you will never see on television, things you won't see when you go to self-help courses, things you will never see when you read a lot of these books that's written from a hindsight, egotistical space. Radical responsibility is the hidden strategy. Once you believe in that, it's going to open up a door to so many strategies you didn't even know existed. You're like, how come nobody's ever told me this? Because even if they told you because you believe in fairness and victimization, you can't process it. Another thing, too. Let me share another one where radical responsibility helps out in business. Let's say you don't preach radical responsibility. You show up to fairness. You're teaching your employees to practice victimization. When you teach your employees to practice victimization, you're creating a level of sensitivity, which is going to get to my next point. I'm going to get to that in a second. You're creating a level of sensitivity and a level of entitlement that will crush your business. So, for example, we're small black businesses. So a lot of people who work at .com don't want to be there no more because .com doesn't have values that make a black person quite often feel like they're living a life of purpose, right? So say in .com you got there and they give you a 10% raise every year just because that's just what they do. Perform or don't perform, you're getting that 10% raise. So what happens is that you leave the .com environment, and when you leave the .com environment, you come to work from, say, 510 Media, 11-member team. And let's say every morning we have breakfast served because Marquita makes sure that everybody gets breakfast every morning because it's good times. But then business does a serious dip, and we cut breakfast because we're cutting budget, right? And that person's going to say, well, this is what I'm used to. Why y'all not doing this here? And now they're feeling victimized. They don't look at radical responsibility. They won't look at, well, why would they do that? Let me understand what's happening. They won't seek that answer. They're going to go into like, oh, I'm being victimized. Number two, end of the year come around and you be like, okay, here's your raise. Here's 3%. They'd be like, 3%? I'm like, yeah, you didn't really perform. Actually, you underperformed. 3% was because you did help us. But look here, just think about all the things I did help out with. Think about all the, that's no radical responsibility for your employees.
Bruh.
You will literally create over-entitled employees if you don't practice radical responsibility. And radical responsibility is going to hurt. That means everything that happens to you, you take responsibility for. Everything.
Amen, brother.
Not some things. George Floyd, you got to take that responsibility. I know that hurts. Everything, you take responsibility. Why do you take responsibility? It's not because you're at fault. That's a different conversation. It's what can I learn if I take responsibility? What can I learn if I take responsibility? It's that simple. And all of a sudden, guess what? I just turned up your learning skills up by 10 to 20% instantly. But if you blame people, you stop thinking when you blame. When you say, when you're at work, that's racist, there's no more thought. We're done. What you gonna say? We're over it.
Yo, also this is a help for you in life, your emotions, your personal life. If you have trauma and you have addictions that are a result of your trauma, it's easy to pass it off. Hey, I'm addicted to this drug because boom, I was this as a child. and it's not my fault. It was the it was that person's fault who did it to me. So you give yourself an out. And yes, this shit was horrible what happened. And your means of coping with that is through this whatever addiction it is, and that is what it is too. However, you can beat it. The first thing you do to beat it is take responsibility. Fuck it, I'm gonna take responsibility for this shit. It wasn't my fault, but I'm definitely gonna take responsibility for it. I'm gonna own it. This is mine. This is mine. It's my body, and I want to win. So the first thing you can do is to allow that to seep into your system, and then your whole DNA changes, because now you go from palms out to giving your power away to other people. They might even be dead and gone, and that person has your power to, nope, I'm taking my power back right now. I'm taking responsibility for all this shit, and I'm taking. Well, and they say, well, what about if you were molested as a child and all those things? All those things are horrible. And it wasn't your fault. None of it was your fault. But as an adult human now, if you want to win and get through it and beat that situation and beat that person, take responsibility for it, shit. I'm owning it.
Yes, sir.
It's a hard one, but it's real as fuck. Now let's go to this next one. This is going to bring it all around for full 360, and it's going to tie into our first homework assignment. We talked about meaning-making machine, and I don't think you guys understand how powerful that is. I really don't think you get how powerful that is. And I'm going to take a second to make it create a very strong business case of the meaning-making machine. So the meaning-making machine is that if you're talking to me right now, and you said to me, why you have this particular cover on your phone, I say to myself, oh, he thinks my phone is ugly. So I assign meaning to the simple question he asked me. In business, meaning-making machine turns into facts versus story. Let me go over this real quick. Facts versus story. First of all, let me say this real quick. If you believe in meaning-making machine, when you practice, most of your drama that you have in your life, most of your drama comes from your meaning-making machine. When you assign meaning to something that is not the facts that's in front of you, right? And so, why is I can hear you saying it's not high enough? Oh, yeah, it's just part of the, yeah. So, most of the facts, most of the things, just turn me up a little bit more. I can just adjust the microphone a little bit. So, meaning-making machine is pretty much what your brain does automatically to assign meaning to things that's happening. Now, in business, it's called facts versus story, and I'm going to go over this real quick. I'm going to show you how powerful this is. So, facts versus story. Fact: sales is low. Story: sales team's not working hard enough. Facts: court's late. Story: he doesn't respect my time. Facts: facts: this person has not met their standard mark. Story: they're not qualified. Why do you have to separate the two? First of all, most of your drama comes from the stories you tell yourself, not the facts. But what we do as human beings is we make the story a fact. So what I mean by that, we'll say, fact is, you know what, our numbers are down. Fact is, sales team, you're not performing right. The reason you have to separate that is because when you tell unnecessary stories, stories become so much drama becomes noise. Drama is a form of noise that it eats up majority of your time. Most of us are spending more time managing the stories we tell as opposed to facts that's happening around us. If you're a person that are always going through these ups and downs of emotions and you're always upset and angry, I promise you majority of the time it's the story you're telling yourself, not the fact that just happened. Someone hits your car or somebody cuts you off in traffic. Fact. Story is because. Fact. The kid goes to school and something happens. Story is bad teacher or my kid ain't trying hard enough. Fact, you get fired from a job. Story is racism. Fact, I come to the office tomorrow and I say something that I said a word. Story is homophobic, sexist. Y'all see how this can be dangerous in a social justice age where everybody's running around screaming stories, stories, stories. You know what that means to me? Why is this important? When you even learn to talk, this is something that's important you got to work on. You have to separate the facts from the story. Now, mind you, am I good at this yet? Not as good as I want to be at all. Not even close to it. Why is this important? Because drama is, when you build conversations around stories, this is what creates all the friction amongst you and other people. This is where you start to create frustration. This is where you start to create business structure collapse. Because now you're attacking people, you're projecting more than you're hearing them. See, if I have a story in my mind, and then I act on that story, all the drama that unfolds from that is all make-believe. But guess what? It is real. The amount of money we lost, the dip in production, and the damage to the relationships. That's costly, extremely costly. And once again, when we're living by stories, we're practicing, once again, we're moving towards make-believe. And like I just said, the strongest team is the most realist team. If you make stories fact in your communication as a leader, you're pushing all these ideas that are not realistic, and when they're not realistic, people start to move and address it. Watch this. Give you another example. You're at your desk and you're typing, and you get a phone call from your loved one, and you and your loved one didn't talk that well that morning. They left a little early. Maybe that night they came in, and they came in, and he's like, "Hey, babe, what's happening?" He's like, "Yo, not right now. I don't want to talk about it." You're like, "What the fuck?" And so you was on Facebook the other day, and you saw your loved one was hugged up with a little cutie pie. You're like, what the fuck? Who's that chick? I never met her before. Right? So then you call him on the phone, you're like, "Hey, babe, I just want to say I love you." Look, I ain't got time to talk right now. I'll talk to you later. Bye. Uh-oh. The next 45 minutes, you don't even work. Next hour, you don't work. Maybe the next rest of the day, you don't work. Especially if you call him back, and he's like, he's not picking up his phone. You text him, "Hey, what's happening? Question, you good? What's going on?" Now, here's the meaning making machine. You know what? It's probably a little broad I saw on the motherfucking, on that Facebook page he's all next to. She was kind of bad. Plus, I think he even liked them kind of girls. He probably never told me about her ass. That's why he don't probably talk about that shit. I bet you last week when he said he went to the gym, he probably didn't even fucking go to the gym. He ain't even that fucking buff any goddamn way. Fuck, he be supposed trying to build. This is what the meaning making machine is starting to run. And then all of a sudden you call your girlfriend like, "Hey, listen, you still got that extra room?" And then you kind of sour. So then he calls you back like, "Hey, baby, what you called me about earlier?" Nothing.
Have a nice life. Have a nice life.
And you built your whole argument and you changed your whole life, not on facts. And later on, you find out that the reason when he was at the party, at the corporate party, the girl walked up to him and said, "Can I take a picture with you real quick?" And he's like, "I don't care. Here." And he smiled. Meant nothing to him. 2, he's really going to the gym. But you can't measure that like that. 3, when he didn't talk to you that morning, is because he got some word from his supervisor. He's like trying to process it like, "Shit, I'm about to lose my job. What's going on?" He gets to work the next day. They sit him down in a room. He thinks he's about to be reprimanded, and they interview him for a big promotion. And you called. And he thought, "Shit, I ain't talked to my wife. Let me just answer the phone real quick." And he hangs up. And so while you try to talk to him, there's one of them all-day interviews where they're talking to him and they're discussing what the possibility of his new job is. And so you, on the other side, told yourself a story. Now you say, "Well, where do stories come from?" Past experiences. Now, y'all want me to really fuck you up? You know how you change your past? One of the most powerful tools to change your past experiences? Change your past stories. Let me say this again. How do you change the future version of you? Write this down, y'all. Change your past stories. How do you change your past stories? 2 ways. Or there's 3 ways. 1, reframe them, restructure them. Here's one that you won't expect me to say. Jokes. I just said it, jokes. Have you ever felt a certain kind of way and a comedian told a joke about something that could have happened in your past and it changed your whole emotion around that whole past story? And that story went from being serious to being almost funny?
Yes, sir.
2, 3, learn to ask more whys about why things work the way they do in this world. because your why empowers you to become a better investigator of your past and be able to change the story. A lot of times you guys are working on 5th grade or 4-year-old, 7-year-old, 10-year-old, 12-year-old descriptions of your past. And so a lot of times people come to this class, and I hear it all the time, for those people in this class who are struggling with change, you know why they're struggling? Because they spend too much time glorifying their past. This is why I get nervous when somebody be like, yo, back in the days, I used to be pimping these bitches. I used to be, but I ain't like that. No, you're like that still. That's who you are. You can't break. And I ain't talking about somebody who's playing with it. If you're being silly, that's one thing. I'm talking about somebody who really like, that guy who talks about, when I was in the 8th, you ever met that guy, came out of high school, and he almost can't leave that time behind. He's literally, or she's literally stuck at that point in their evolution. Or something happened where your mother didn't show up for you this way, your boyfriend didn't do this in your last relationship, your cousin didn't do this for you when you asked him to, your uncle did this to you when you was younger. All those stories, my mother did this and she didn't handle all of her responsibilities and this hurt me and this is why I'm this way. Every time you tell those stories the way you've been telling it for the last 20 years, you can read all these fucking books. You can come sit with me in court all the fuck you want. But in the words of Shabisha, all you're trying to do is make this new shit fit in your old stories. You're not creating new stories. You're trying to take your old stories and what you're trying to do is take this new story you learn and try to make it align with that fucked up story you will not let go. Did I say too mean?
Can I say, listen to me, okay? Let me tell y'all something. This is serious. So I spent 3 years doing that. Like, honestly, I spent 3 years adding to whatever story I had. I watched people come in here before me take off faster. I watched people come in at the same time as me take off faster. I spent 3 years because I kept trying to make hope fit what I was trying to do instead of just letting it go. And I'm happy, but it hurt real bad like 3 weeks ago when it hit me. I'm happy now. It hurt real bad. Real bad.
Well, here's the dope part about stories too, is that as we know, there's no right or wrong. There's no good or bad. All of that is arbitrary, it's relative. The goal for you, the goal for every person who's listening or watching is for it to work for you, to work for your ultimate good, to work for your advancement, to work for your business, to work for you. So the dope part about stories is, like he mentioned, you can always change your story. You can always change your story. Here's the thing, no story is absolute truth anyway. No story is absolute truth. So it's not about whether the story is true or not. It's about whether it works for you. Does it motivate you? Does it inspire you? Does it give you what you need to make happen what you need to happen? Then fuck it. It's good. It's a true story. It's a true story for you. And when that story stops working for you, then change that shit. I remember a while ago, long time ago, Oakland Tribune had did an article on me, on my first company. And it was wanting to know my backstory, right? How'd you grow up? So I tell the whole shit. East Oakland, crack, violence, murder, the whole shit that I witnessed, right? Growing up. So my mama and my aunties read that motherfucking article and was hot with me. Why you making it look like we just some crackheads growing up? Why you do us like that? Like we had a good life. We lived good. That's not our story. And I'm like, yeah, but that was my story. And she was like, well, that was only a dip. I had a bad time. Like it was like a 10-year run of just, I had to struggle and came up. I'm like, yeah, from zero, that was from 0 to 10 years old for me. So you was 50. So that was 10 years out of your good life or whatever you had before I was here. But that was all my life at the time. So that's all I know. So what other story do I have? So every story is incomplete. Every story doesn't have an ending or a beginning because the story is continuous. So what I thought was the full story was 10-year bad run for my mom. And apparently she had a better life that I wasn't aware of because I wasn't around. So but the thing is, it got to work for you. And you could toss it out if it don't work no more.
So, and it's important that, so going back to the facts versus story, is learn to talk like that. Hey, listen, here's a fact. Like, for example, a fact is what a video camera can record. A fact is, I'm sitting in front of you. But what I'm feeling and my story that I'm telling myself is this. The reason you have to separate those two, because once again, somebody who sees stories as facts live in a lot of drama. And if you want to bring drama down in your life, separate stories from fact.
Yes, sir.
Separate stories from fact. So here's an exercise. Write this down. Danielle, back me up, because you know she be rocking the on the text and stuff. First exercise. I want you to focus this whole week, the next 2 weeks, on observing radical responsibility. I want you to look for times when you do and don't take radical responsibility. And I want you to pay attention to people around you and examples of when people are not taking. Now, don't bring it to their attention. Don't become the moral or the conscious or self-awareness police. But I want you to create a journal. Even if you have to just document 3 or 4 times a day, I want you to pay attention when you see situations where folks are not taking radical responsibility. That means the police is doing this to our community. That's not radical responsibility. I want you to see how much it exists around you. There's something that unique about the brain. If the brain ain't looking for it, the brain don't see it. You guys remember when you brought your first car? You thought, this car gonna be tight, ain't nobody got this. And as soon as you got it, you see them everywhere. But before you purchase that car, you never seen that car at all. Your brain does not see what you don't focus on. I want you to see how often do you not take. So if you say, somebody says, well, you did this last week, do you say, well, you did this too?
Oh, man.
Or do you say to yourself, yeah.
Yep.
I want you guys to write down every time. If it's just a notch, if you don't have the time to write it down, just put a notch. Every time you see, witness, whether it's on television, social media, or in your household, how often you recognize the lack of radical responsibility. Part 2, this is 2 weeks. This is a 2-week exercise. Part 2, I want you to go on social media, and I want you to pay attention to your local surroundings. How often are people signing meaning, start signing a story to a fact as if the story is part of the fact? They did this, so this means they, okay, that's all the story. This happened to me, so this was what she was trying to do, that's a story. I heard somebody said, that's a story. Somebody came to me the other day and said, hey, you know, I heard, let's say, for example, this is a similar story, I'm changing all the people, but somebody said, hey, I heard the other day, court fired on somebody. Now, if you're facts versus story, your story would say, see, that's why he's hella macho. I knew, see, I'm projecting. You see what's happening? But if I'm facts, I will reserve all past judgment, immediately pick up my phone and say, hey, court, is this true? Why did I do that? My wife would tell you, I'm the king of that. If I sense something, if I hear something about Shabisha, I don't walk around with that story in my head because I know that story will start to grow meaning slowly, even in my head. So I grab the phone immediately. It could be 11 o'clock at night. Shabisha, as soon as you wake up, give me a call. Shabisha, is this true you hit court? And she'll say, no, we were laughing. Somebody saw that and assumed they saw something, and now they put that story in your ear, right? And this, what this does, it allows you to, now you realize there's less drama around you than you realize. Number 2, you'll realize you have hella more time than you realize. Go back to that person who was talking to their loved one, and the person picked the phone up and put the phone down. That person lost 4 hours in that day. They can't even tell you what happened because they were in their head processing. And I don't know if you ever paid attention to time. Time moves hella fast if you start processing. So they're in the head process, like, what did I do wrong? You call around, investigate, you online, look at that pictures and like, look at his Facebook, look at his Instagram, what's it on Twitter? What's it? Well, let me call this person, see where they were on Thursday, right? All that stuff, and then I come to you on Friday and say, hey, man, you read that book I shared with you? No, I just didn't have a lot of time this week. I had a lot going on. It was just a rough week for me. You know what's rough about you? Is because you took some of these stories and made them facts. So I want you guys to pay attention to how often do you turn stories into facts? How often do people in social media and your family turn stories into facts? And I want you guys to, because what we're doing, this is an awareness exercise. Now, not next Friday, but the following Friday when Tone and Charlize does the group class, I would love for you guys to join that class and share with you the struggles you went through when you try to become radical responsible and you try to separate facts from stories. I want to hear the details of what was so hard, or was it just, oh, it was just easy for me, and I want to hear why. And then they're going to boil it down, and then when we come back from the break, we're going to talk about how you showed up to radical responsibility and the meaning maker machine, or facts versus story. All right? So that's the exercise. Is for the next 2 weeks, I want you to become an investigator for every time you see a lack of radical responsibilities and when stories become facts. Because this is important, because if you don't work on this awareness, you can read this class and use this to repeat to shame your friend or try to show that you have higher intelligence or higher morality, but you're still the same person, suffering from the same challenges. So the first thing you have to do, like I said, the first thing you have to do in order for you to improve is first you got to take responsibility and see that you have to be aware first. You have to be aware. If you're not aware, then you can't even change what you're not aware of. So with that being said, let's rock into E-Myth. Misha?
Number 5, the model will provide a uniformly predictable service to the customer. While the business must look orderly, it is not sufficient. The business must also act orderly. It must do things in a predictable, uniform way.
Look, when you go to a business, human beings hate uncertainty. Imagine going to a restaurant that looks really, 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 really great, but every time you order your food to be delivered, they're missing something. If they're missing something, it's not because the people don't care. They don't have an orderly system inside. They don't have a way of doing things that are consistent, right? If you're dealing with a client who can spend a lot of money with you, the worst thing you can ever do is betray their expectations. Because there's so much pressure. Like, for example, let's say you call me into our office and I'm doing business with Court to design some clothes. When this person is talking to me, I sometimes unconsciously, because I want to show I'm in control, they say, hey, can you get the shirts in time? Oh, yes, we can. They're going to be this way? Of course. I know Court. Of course. I just vouch for you. I don't really know. Now, Court starts being inconsistent. It's not that he fails or the shirts didn't have high quality, but any adjustments are going to make me uncomfortable to vouch for you. And if I can't vouch for you, you can't be part of this team. So consistency, great customer service is not just caring about a customer and giving high effort. It's by providing a consistent experience the customer can always depend on. So even if you say, I want to design nicer boxes, nicer packaging, better communication, you can't do it one time. It has to be a consistent experience. If you start interjecting better ideas all the time and it's not consistent, I'm not saying you can't test an idea. And you could say, hey, we're testing this new idea, we want to see how this works. But what you can do is one day I get this beautiful box, the teacher comes in, and I buy another one really expensive for my friend, and I'm like, man, Frank gonna love this box, and when they open it up, and when they get a box, it's in an Amazon Smile box, and they just open the box, and it's right there in a plastic bag. You don't get to do that. Because at the end of the day, I did not buy that shirt for that price. Okay. Do you understand that a pair of shoes from Nike that costs $300 and a pair of shoes from Nike that costs $100 cost relatively the same to make? Am I right? So let's say that pair of shoes costs $10. What makes Nike a successful business is not the ability to go find a shoe for $200 and sell it for $300. What makes Nike amazing is they can run marketing and branding and control your emotions and the story you tell to say, I want to spend $1,000 for these rare shoes and $100 for these rare shoes. And the markup for these shoes is $7. Both these shoes cost $7, but one has a different story attached. So what you can't do in business is ignore the value of the story. So like, for example, when Kyrie Irving, like, why do I need to do these interviews? Or you hear these basketball players like, why I gotta dress like this? Why I gotta act like this? Why I gotta show up to this event here? Why I gotta smile when I come off the court? Why I have to get this interview? Why I have to deal with this? What about my emotions? It's because this sport is not valuable. We're creating a story that's valuable. When Steph Curry shoots a three-pointer, there's no such thing as a three-point shot. We just made that shit up. We can turn it into a 5-point shot tomorrow. We can say no more 3-point shots. It's now called 2-point shots. The NBA can change all that shit anytime. It's all made up. But in order for you to fall in love with it and wear a jersey and buy the shoes and spend extra money for those shoes, spend $1,000 to sit in a chair this close to somebody, I gotta brand in your brain this story. So Kevin Durant, if you want that paycheck, help me keep this story going. Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, if you want that paycheck, you don't get to tell us fuck the NBA because that story is the only reason you got money to go do what you got to do. It's not because you playing this game matters, because when it comes down to reality, it's a game we made up that you just serve. The same thing with products and business. When somebody buys your products are not the most important thing. If you thought like that, then that means all tennis shoes would cost you $10, $15 a piece. Maybe $25 a piece. That's it. The most expensive tennis shoe will cost you about $25 when they did a little market for making a minimum profit. But if you want to take that $7 tennis shoe and sell it for $300, $200, $2,000 in some cases, for the same $7 fucking made tennis shoe to produce, then it means you got to not only create a story, but protect the sanctity of that story. And where we go wrong is we treat the story as if it's optional. It is not optional. And what helps with that story is in order for you to convince me that story is true, you have to help me trust the story. Well, how do you help human beings trust the story? Consistency. No consistency? I don't trust the story. That's like, for example, if Nike was just some dude on the streets, he's like, yo, I got these pair of shoes. Let you have them right now for $600. You'd be like, dude, imagine if you just spend $20 on a pair of shoes. Everywhere you go, you spend $20 to $50 on a pair of shoes. And Nike says, I got this pair of shoes because I think Jordan wore them. You're like, dude, get out my face. Nope. What helps is when they can send this idea that everybody's wearing these shoes, they're in all the stores, they're where you want to, it's a limited production, you only can get this certain. When all those systems do what they say they're going to do, I trust Nike. It's like, one of the biggest problems with the internet is the reason it's harder for smaller businesses to get in the internet because they don't have the trust. They don't have trust. And the way you establish trust is consistency. Consistency. It's the most basic, fundamental requirement of establishing trust. And so what my argument is that you got to stop looking at serving people, being kind to people, helping people is great customer service. Without consistency, none of it works.
It's really another secret sauce. There's a reason why you choose Safeway or Trader Joe's or Whole Foods. It's not necessarily because the exact quality of the stuff that you get. It's because the service you receive is consistent. You get it every time. You can go to Trader Joe's and you know exactly what to expect. The reason why McDonald's is still here, when there's so many burger places that have opened and closed throughout the last 50, 60 years, is not because the burgers were inferior. It's because the quality and the service and the system that you expect is consistent across the board. So you know if you're in New York and there's not a place to eat, fuck, I know what I'm gonna get from here. And that's where you get them. That's where you got them. Because that particular level of service, not saying you can't ratchet up over time or upgrade it over time, but every time the customer, the customer feels consistent. Human nature, human need, and in Maslow's hierarchy is humans. They have to have consistency. It's a human need to have consistency. So now somewhere down in there is also a human need for inconsistency or to shake shit up. But we have to have consistency. So if I'm spending my bread with you, then you can't tell me everything is up. You can't have excellent customer service today and ask me what the fuck I want tomorrow.
Next one.
As I left, something in me decided not to go back. It certainly wasn't the haircut. He did an excellent job. It wasn't the barber. He was pleasant, affable, seemed to know his business. It was something more essential than that.
Keep going.
There was absolutely no consistency to the experience. The expectations created at the first meeting were violated at each subsequent visit. I wasn't sure what to expect, and something in me wanted to be sure. I wanted an experience I could repeat by making the choice to return.
Wait a minute, sorry, 1 second. We have a technical adjustment. You know you can turn it on with the, huh? Oh, okay, use the remote control to it. You don't have to do it. Anyway, read that, just can you read it one more time, because we have production adjustments.
Want to take it from
Yeah,
the
go
first
ahead.
one?
There was absolutely no consistency to the
Okay.
experiences. Go ahead.
There was absolutely no consistency to the experience. The expectations created at the first meeting were violated at each subsequent visit. I wasn't sure what to expect, and something in me wanted to be sure. I wanted an experience I could repeat by making the choice to return.
So what he's saying is that, so when he went to get a haircut in the book, the first time the guy did a haircut, he told him, hey, we need to wash your hair before we cut it, and then we need to dry it, because if we dry it, we can get a more higher level of accuracy. Then while he was getting his haircut, they brought him a glass of wine, and the haircut was amazing, the wine. Second time he came around, they didn't wash his hair at all. They cut his hair, and they offered him I think they didn't offer him anything to drink. Next time they came around, he washed the hair, but he used clippers, and instead of using scissors, and he offered him coffee. So the inconsistency, even though all three haircuts were on point, he started, and what it spells to a customer? Chaos. Like when you walk into a business and it's always changing, it feels chaotic. And when you spend your money, especially if it's your hard-earned money, you want to know what you're going to get and get what you want, as opposed to taking a chance of showing up to a business and not really getting what you asked for. And so that was huge.
You guys remember? I don't know, us Bay folks. Did you ever used to go to Ozumo's, the sushi restaurant? There was a time where Ozumo's, that restaurant, the food was amazing, banging, like excellent food, excellent service. Then they hired a new sous chef. Sous chef came up with these new ideas, new recipes, and got into it with the main chef back and forth until the manager sided with the sous chef and the main chef quit. That's why, if you guys noticed the fall off of Ozumo's, that's what it was. Now recipes is shit. The same stuff that you ordered a week ago tastes completely different now, because it's just a different person back there. And that started the demise of that restaurant. Now it's shut down. That building's still empty. But if you take a business like Le Cheval, right? Le Cheval has been open 35 years plus, 35 plus years. Vietnamese restaurant. It's not the upper echelon. It's high quality. It's not lower. It's not low quality, but it's the same exact food, the same exact quality every time. And I talked to the owner, and he was like, look, man, this is why our secret. There's always going to be bad times, fucked up things that happen in society, downturns in the economy, all that shit. You know what we do? Our strategy is we don't care if prices go up in meat, in shrimp, in food. We don't give a fuck. We buy the exact same stuff. So if that means our margins are zero that month, they're just going to be zero. If prices go down, we don't try to make more money, or we keep our same recipes and our exact same quality. So then how we win is that when times are good, everybody comes to our restaurant because they know what to get. And the prices are good. And times are bad, everybody comes to our restaurant because they know exactly what they're going to get. And the prices are good. And that's a perfect example. Le Cheval is a perfect example of this.
Next one. Go ahead, next one.
The unpredictability said nothing about the barber other than that he was constantly and arbitrarily changing my experience for me. He was in control of my experience, not I.
There it is. There it is right there. Like, when a person receives what they expect, then you give them a sense of control. That's a human beings hate. We deeply hate uncertainty, and so by you giving that person a sense of control, also that person is taking away your sense of control, right? It's like okay, let's imagine you get on a train, and you're about to get on a train. Somebody goes, "Nah, get off the train. Take the next train." You don't care what the issue is. All you feel like you've been violated. Right? This is what the typical customer, this is how they process the world. And so at the end of the day, when he changed whatever he changed, he told the person what I want to do for you matters more than what you need. And that's all they hear. Go on, keep going.
And he demonstrated little sensitivity to the impact of his behavior on me. He was running the business for him, not for me. And by doing so, he was depriving me of the experience of making a decision to patronize his business for my own reasons, whatever they may have been.
So, and that's the thing, is you don't own the customer's why. You can influence the why, but sometimes people will purchase your products and services for things you don't understand. But that's why the consistency matters, because you could do a subtle tweak and you can lose half your customer base because they're not buying it for why you think they're buying it.
Hey, you know what that made me think about?
What's that?
In the music game, how you can differentiate between artists who happen to make really good music, but they make it for them, and really good music and they make it for the crowd, right? They make it for their audience. So you may have a favorite artist or musician that you fell in love with them in their first album because they was going through the same shit you was going through. And then maybe by the second album, they got over it and their life got better. So the songs got different and it had nothing to do with you. So then you're like, I'm still hold on because I really fuck with this artist. They raw. And then another life exchange happened. And then now they on the woo-woo side with me, burning sage. And you're like, what the fuck? Because it ain't about you, it's about them. But then you have artists who understand the dynamic of consistency and realizing that I have to deliver for my fans, I have to deliver for my crowd on a consistent basis and give them what they need. So then they go platinum 10 times in a row. They'll go have a platinum album 10 times in a row. Or they just say consistently in the game. You take a Beyonce, who they study their audience and study the game, so consistently they're delivering that same quality. And so that like a lot of times we got to get out our own egos too and realize this entrepreneurship shit ain't about me. It ain't about you. It's about how well can you show up in solving problems for your customer.
Next one.
It didn't matter what I wanted. It didn't matter that I enjoyed the sound of the scissors and somehow equated them with a professional haircut. It didn't matter that I enjoyed being waited on by his assistant. It didn't matter that I enjoyed the experience of having my hair washed before he set to work and that I actually believed it would improve the quality of the haircut.
Next one.
I would have been embarrassed to ask for these things, let alone to give my reasons for wanting them. They were all so totally emotional, so illogical. How could I have explained them or justified them without appearing to be a boob? What the barber did was to give me a delightful experience and then take it away.
And what people don't realize is that, okay, so for example, when he went to the barber shop and he heard the scissors clip, it could have took him down to his childhood. He could have seen it as only old school craftsmen use scissors and modern day guys use clippers. But because that person is focusing on efficiency, not what people want, and not paying attention to the psychological impact of it, because it doesn't need to be a smart why. It's a story that people have. There's so many products. I mean, if business is all about rational thinking, there'd be no such thing as Kardashians. Kardashians is a story that fits a lot of people's lives, and a lot of people enjoy that lives, and they're willing to spend money for that story. The reality is that there's a lot of money that moves in this world that have no rationality tied to it. I mean, there was this old saying by Dan Kennedy that says that if you don't charge the customer enough money, let's say you get somebody a discount, it don't benefit you or the customer. If you think the customer, you're saving food on their table. You're not. They're just going to take that money and go spend on some stupid shit. Because number one, money's replenishable. But number two, you get your profit. Because the reason you get your profit is because if you don't, they'll go buy some rims, or they go buy some shoes, or an outfit, or a special fly swatter, or an extra water purifier, or a super mask, or something like that. And that's your profit they spent on that. And so in our minds, we try to tie too much rationality. Damon Dash says, stay out of people's pocket. Don't try to analyze the reason why they're doing it. Find out what the customer wants and align with that. Keep going.
What you do in your model is not nearly as important as doing what you do the same way each and every time.
So that's the argument for McDonald's right there. That's an argument for most big businesses all the time. Most big businesses don't have the best product. They have the highest level of consistency. Where small businesses usually kill themselves off, their consistency sucks. Do you understand how, the other day I went to Bake Sale Betty. Everybody from Bay Area knows Bake Sale Betty makes some great chicken sandwiches. Like if y'all like that Popeye shit, y'all need to fly out here and get a Bake Sale Betty sandwich. Or go to New Orleans where they really do it. New Orleans makes some of the best, those kind of sandwiches. Chicken sandwich, fried chicken sandwich, fried alligator or whatever, fried. They get down in New Orleans. Fried shrimp, oysters, all that. But Bake Sale Betty's, and so I went there the other day, and the sandwich was different. It just was different. And it was disappointing because it wasn't like you just go to Bake Sale Betty's every time and just, here you go, quick, and get in and get out. I drove to the other side of town. There's usually a line associated with that, means 30 minutes. You get your sandwich. Mind you, your mind started maybe 2 hours before then, so you had 3 hours of just dreaming about this great taste, and it's not there. It's almost like you stole something from me. This is the responsibility you have as a business owner. How when you create a consistency, you got to create methods and structures and policies and what to do to make sure that the consistency doesn't happen. For example, here today, it just happened here. The light behind us went out. There's a system that we created. We created a system here, but somebody didn't follow the system, right? Not mad at them, but something we had to work on. But the light didn't go out because somebody's ignorant. Nobody's ignorant. Everybody in this team is brilliant. But if you don't follow a system, and the reason I'm saying this is because it's easy to think that it's a flawed character, or somebody's not smart, or somebody's stupid. That's a story you're telling yourself. If you take radical responsibility, you realize, okay, I got to oversee that system and make sure that system is working right. My system is not efficient. I'm not going to say, oh, this person didn't set up, who didn't set up. No, we got to create a better system. When you run a business, if you have a flawed system or a loose system or a poorly designed system, then you're going to have high levels of inconsistency. Work for McDonald's. If you ever get a chance, if you ever work for fast food, go back to how they taught you all these systems that you had to follow. They didn't tell you to come in there and be freestyling. Make these burgers the way you want to. This is where the pickles go. This is where the onions go. This is how much ketchup you get. This is how much mustard. You didn't get the choice to make change that when you felt like it. Because they had to protect the consistency the customer would come to expect. Next one.
Number 6, the model will utilize a uniform color, dress, and facilities code. Marketing studies tell us that all consumers are moved to act by the colors and shapes they find in the marketplace. Different consumer groups simply respond differently to specific colors and shapes. Believe it or not, the colors and shapes of your model can make or break your business.
Oh my God. So let me tell you. So remember I told you guys, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, I went to a business and I went to the front door and they had a gate on the front door. It's in East Oakland. So they had a gate. The bakery is amazing. And the ground was dirty. I'm going there for food. Now, I see it right away. Maybe Court sees it unconsciously. But we're going to both feel something about going to get food in your space, right? Then go to this donut shop in East Oakland, and these cats are in the middle of the hood, but they're like the bright light in the hood because they store everything, the window clean, everything's structured clean. There's no flies where the donuts are. The floor is clean, outside's clean. That impacts my comfort zone in buying your business. 2, uniforms. How people dress in business matters. I understand what we feel when we tell ourselves. But if what customers come to expect, people make decisions based upon the way people are dressed. If you're nervous and you're screaming and something's going wrong, there's a certain kind of human being you will run to if things go wrong, especially if that person has a uniform on. We don't understand, like I see people open businesses like they open up a club. You know, you have a personal club where you and your partners play dominoes every day, and it could be kind of cool, but not kind of cool, like because you made like a Daniel club or the Garage club. I see people open a business, it still looks like a club. When you design your business, the first thing you should do is tour your market. Find out what is the colors that attract people in your market. 2, when you design your business, figure out, look on your own, look up how those colors, that sound, the air, the spacing, how things, the font, the layout and design, how that all impacts your customer perception. Then show up to that. Now, I know when you first start, you may not have all that money, but grow into that. And the basics show order and cleanliness at the highest level. Show structure at the highest level. I don't give a shit if it's write a piece on a piece of paper, hand it to somebody, come back and say, I got number 7 ready, here you go. I don't give a shit if it's that simple. But what you can't do is personalize, well, this is what I like. I don't give a shit. That's what I feel. You are serving the customer. So what customers need to help them make a decision is all that matters. All that other shit you talking is, I don't even hear you speaking. Unless you're going to buy all your products and then resupply it again and buy all the products again, your opinion is the least important opinion.
Yeah. There's so many variables and factors that we have to use when it comes to attracting customers. You have your anchoring, priming, framing, all those things come into play in terms of how to attract customers to you. And those things have to be uniform. And so you can't have people going willy-nilly freestyle doing what they want to do in your business, because the customer experience is always going to change. Now, here's the deal. Like if you go to the hospital because you have some serious health issues that you want to get repaired and fixed, and you walk into the room and the nurse walks in a nightclub outfit and a doctor walks in like he just finished hooping. How you going to feel? Even though they both got the same badge around their neck that says PhD, MD, or RN. How are you going to feel? You're going to be like, wait, hold up. Go get me a real doctor. And it's all based on just some piece of cloth, some polyester, some cotton, even though they may have the same skill set. But that affects your whole mood, your whole mind, your whole perception, and your comfortness, your comfortability. So that's stethoscope that people have around their neck has a calming effect. So in business, you got to do the things that signal to your customers that you know what the fuck you're doing. Do things in business that signal to I don't care if it's arbitrary or not, it doesn't matter. Signal to your customers that you got it and you're going to take good care of them and that you know what you're doing, or you're at the highest level, or you mean excellence, or you mean business. So, and that comes through market research and experience, but that's absolutely necessary.
Next one.
Your business is the same as the blouse in Cheskin's story. There are colors that work and colors that don't. The colors you show your customer must be scientifically determined and then used throughout your model, on the walls, the floors, the ceilings, the vehicles, the invoices, your people's clothes, the displays, the signs.
Look, they discovered certain colors. For example, like you said, if a lawyer walked in there and he had on a Hawaiian suit, are you riding with that lawyer? If your banker came out and they had on a satin suit, are you comfortable giving them $1 million? Right? There's a reason that UPS, FedEx chose those colors. There's a reason. All colors have a motivation to human behavior. Human beings are not making pure, rational, uninfluenced decisions. There's no such thing. There's an argument that free will really doesn't exist for human beings. Because there's a nurturing that happens around us that's shaping our choices that we think we're making on our own. And guess who plays the king? Who's the king and queen of that? We are as business owners. And so if you're a business owner, your job is to manipulate things that are influencing decisions that people are making. And so when you design a website, you don't just put colors you like. We design your product. You just don't put colors you like. You sit down and make those are critical decisions. Those are not passive. Those are not just like, give me something that looks good. I know when you're moving fast, you're hustling, you like, oh, just give me something. I ain't got time to think about that kind of stuff. In business, you have to think about that kind of stuff. Because it could be the difference. There's a case where somebody have moved the buy button, just moved it, and saw sales go up $300,000 from just moving the damn button. I didn't say change. Moving the damn button made him $300,000. And so you can't take, just because you don't understand the influence designs have on you doesn't mean designs have no value. Let me tell you how designs will impact you. Next time your loved one says, take me somewhere nice, are you going to take them to McDonald's or to the local juke joint or to the local French fry spot? Or do you find a space that feels a certain kind of way? What do you mean it feels some kind of way? Now, when you sit there and you eat the food, try to separate yourself from the moment and ask yourself, is it really better than the other spots you went to where the food was $20 and now you're spending $75? How many of you guys ever been to Benihana's? Benihana's is pure marketing. That's crappy ass food. Crappy. Yes, if Benihana's listening, you know that shit's crap. Fucking crappy ass food. But what happens is the ambiance changes the value of the food. That's the trick. The ambiance, how many times have you went to an expensive-ass restaurant, spent $250 for a meal, and then went to one of your favorite spots in the neighborhood, spent maybe $60 for the food, and the food for the $60 place, smoked that place for $250. I went to a restaurant the other day. The team brought me this fancy-ass meal. Team, don't ever do it again. Love you guys, but don't do it for me because I'm not going to go, and I don't want y'all to waste your beautiful money on that. But they brought me this 2 Michelin restaurant, high end. I think the meal was like $500 for me and Shakira. They're bringing out tasters. Yeah, this is prepared by this chef. And he tried to use that little soft-ass voice. And he used it, says, and it has this organic, and it's got these leaves, and the sugar was brought from a plane, from the ukulele. What the fuck are you saying to me? And I eat the shit and was like, I will never eat that shit again. And there's a couple things that were cool. Like then they brought me this one little dessert. Dessert had to be the size of my thumb. And the shit was hella good, and that was it. And then on to the next course. And when the shit was over, it's like, well, how did you enjoy yourself? I said, babe, since we leave this motherfucker, go get some food. This is some bullshit. And what they was trying to play me for is you get to eat with other people who could eat $500 for a meal. And you get to be in this exclusive space, which means we're actually exploiting your status. Now, I can read that. I promise many people who listen to this class are going to say, well, I would enjoy myself. Of course, because you're not reading that. And why do you need to read that? It's because you have to recreate that. So if I'm sitting in a restaurant, I'm not mad at them for running their game. I'm trying to say, oh, this is how y'all do it? Oh, that was tight. Okay, that could have been done better. All right, I'm going to use that for my business. And then I replicate it. I go to a hotel and they tell me, you know, your room is about $900 a night. It's a very high-end room. It's the same room as a $200 a night. And then this other hotel down the fucking street by the airport. But you're running game because you put the W on there, or you put this fanciest Marriott or the Hilton, and it's going to be on the top floor that you don't even look out the fucking window. When you look at the window, there's no long. It's not like you sit there the whole day like, yeah, I'm going to sit here all day and watch the cars pass and look at the top of the buildings, and this is worth $800 extra a day. This is just going to be everything to me. No, it's not. Because when it comes down to it, I'm going to get there late and sleep in the same fucking bed that's down at the bottom floor. But in my head, they play me because why? I want to feel like at the end of the day, I'm high end. Last thing, I go on a plane. I found out that business class and first class is the same fucking thing, but one is $1,000 cheaper. But why do you pay for first class? Because we pay for first class and I got on first. Business class got on second, and everybody else is third and fourth. I'm second. I don't give a fuck. I'm keeping that $1,000 in my pocket. You guys are going with this, but I also don't get mad because this shit works. And so I'm learning from the game. I'm saying to you guys, pay attention to how you're spending your money and learn that you're not buying actual, because when you go to business, this is where you guys fuck up. So now you go get into business, you're like, well, I'm selling water. What's the cost of water? Okay, the cost of water is like 10 cents, or 2 cents. So I guess, well, I'm gonna sell my water for 26 because I at least want to be fair. This is how you would think as a business person. But when you understand business, you'll say, okay, this water is really 10 cents. So I'm going to call it Voss, put it in a glass bottle. I'm going to sell this to you now for $5 a bottle at the club, or $10 a bottle at the club. Water. Now I'm going to put it in plastic, and I ain't going to drop the prices. And say, you know, you are buying Voss, the originators of glass bottles. Game. Recognize game. Okay, y'all. Learn to play the game you in. Stop trying to be the monk in this whole, this is a different game. Change the way you think to play this game.
Yeah, it's business, and it's a game of business. So understanding your market and understanding the demographic and people that buy from you can help you frame things and signal things better. You got to know which market you in. There's a purveying group, I don't know what the name is. Are they millennials or whatever? But this group, they're different. So if they are your customers, you got to understand them. There's minimalists in that group who don't even like fancy shit. They still make the $250 a year, but they don't even like fancy shit. They turn away from it. They rather buy all things that are functional. So then when you are in your sales pitch, you don't even speak on the fancy shit. You speak on the functionality. Look, it has this compartment, this secret compartment. This is also, it's biodegradable, and it uses solar energy, and we use solar energy to do all this work. Like you use that angle, and they're like, oh shit, okay, I want to spend my money with you. Like there's so many different things that you can draw from by understanding your customers and listening to them. In our world, our manufacturer, whether the customer wants names on their uniforms or not, doesn't change the price for us. So for 5 years, we pass that savings on to the customers. Even though for 5 years straight, we always get asked by a customer, so I want to put names on the back. Does that cost extra? And we like, no, it don't. Till we finally like, what the fuck are we doing? We have 10,000 kids a year. So just by saying, yes, it costs $1 extra, and they like, yeah, because I expected that. We just made $10,000 extra dollars in 1 year. So we start saying yes, because that's what they expected, the perception. They wanted it damn near. So understand your demographic, and you can wiggle in around and learn how to signal them and frame them in a way that makes them happy and we're happy.
Yeah.
Any questions online? Go ahead. We're moving at a nice speed here. Look at that, bro. You hella fast.
We got, 9 more to go?
Yeah, we do. Come on, we killing it. Danielle will be jealous.
So this
It's a cute
question.
outfit, by the way, Shamisha.
Thanks. This question comes from Kaja, and she asked. So this was around radical responsibility.
Yes.
And so she asked, if you typically expect a negative outcome, no. Sorry, Kaja, I'm messing you up. Okay, we back now. She said, processing and assigning meaning can feel like a necessary measure for self-protection, trying to stay ahead of what may happen next. Is there any value to this way of thinking on any sort of level? Is there ever a time when processing and assigning
So first of all,
meaning-
she said something that was very powerful. The reason we do assign meaning quite often is linked to fear. A lot of our flaws that we have that are built into our culture is tied to fear, right? And we have to ask, she had to first explore that fear of what? What do you fear? Quite often you fear rejection from the group. You fear hurting people. There's one more you fear. But off the top, those two that came in is rejection from the group and hurting people. Quite often, it's the strategy of how you show up to that space. So this is truth. This is a truth part, right? The truth versus story. Mm-hmm. If you're talking to somebody and you want to show up in that space, a lot of times you tell yourself a story because, let's say if I'm talking, well, it depends. Let's say, for example, I tell myself, like, I want to say this to somebody, but I won't be candid with people because I'm concerned. So I'm going to tell myself a story so I don't have to face this moment because I could be possibly rejected. It's how you show up to that story and how you tell. So if you tell somebody, look, hey, sit down. I sit down with you. I say, hey, Shabisha, last week you were late, but I'm telling myself a story that you don't care, and that's just my story. Can you tell me what is going on? Now, let me show you what you can play a role you can play to it. You will return and say, after you tell me the story, you'll say, hey, is that your only concern? Are you clear of everything you want to talk about? And then we proceed forward. The reason you want to do that is because this clear, now that's really high advanced. I'm almost there. I'm not there yet. That's practice. I'm going to be sure of everything, some of these things I'm teaching you guys requires practice. Like, I didn't just wake up one day and have this skill. This shit is a lot of mistakes. A lot of oops, fuck. Didn't do it that time. And I still can get mad enough where I'd be like, you know damn well that was wrong. But it's important that, so what happens with me and Mashama is quite often, I will get mad at something and I call him with the story. Then he'll let me go through my story and he'll go, so what do you think the facts are? And then we go, okay, well, we need to investigate. We need to ask questions. You want to practice that 9.9 times out of 10. Now, what's the 0.1 time? Change the story when it helps you win.
You just took it.
Just change the story when it helps you win. So if you say to yourself, oh, he's trying to conquer me. I have to take this guy out. All right. But just know you created that story. Mm-hmm. Don't spend the next 10 years of your life saying, I never spoke to you because I always felt like you was trying to conquer me. Right? Athletes do it all the time in the middle of a game. So we're not rigid. Just knowing you can you can become the overseer of a story, but you got to know that story is a thing. If you don't know the story is a thing, then you're really victimized by your stories, as opposed to you become the God over your stories, and you recognize, okay, I don't like Shabisha because it's a story I'm telling myself, or I don't trust her because it's a story I'm telling myself. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to take on this challenge in my life because it's a story I'm telling myself. I'm scared about this because the story not just offended me because it's a story I'm telling myself. Right? I'm arguing with my mate because the story I told myself. I'm not asking for a promotion because the story I'm telling myself. I think white people are racist because the story I'm telling myself.
Yeah. If you notice the pattern, if you think about the pattern, if you ever had jobs, multiple jobs, and there was word or talk about the boss or the owner of the company, right? Think about the times where you heard about the owner of a company, right? A lot of times people talk shit about that owner of the company. What was the shit talk? He's rude, mean, this, that,
Don't
other.
care.
He don't care.
He's making dumb
just-
decisions.
He does. Guess what? A lot of times those owners are so close to the truth. They're close to truth, to honesty, to facts. So it appears to everyone else is rude, this, that, the other. They don't care, blah blah blah. But like a lot of times we have to be insulated because we know the success of our company derives from how often our relationship is good with truth. That's just what it is. Now, just like you said, whatever stories that you do have, make the motherfuckers work for you. Make them work for you. Me personally, if I can't get to the person to understand their story, or my meaning making machine gives them the benefit of the doubt, so I can be at peace. Man, you know what? That person may have gone through some shit today. I don't know. Who knows? Anyways, or that person's struggling. He wasn't talking to me. He wasn't talking to me.
What's the value of you doing that?
Your emotional bandwidth. So your bandwidth now can focus on what works, what you need to do in life, in business, and like you are protecting your bandwidth, because anything else, you're gonna be off. Just like you said, you ain't gonna be able to work for 45 fucking minutes. So what remember the podcast? What's your hourly rate? Mm-hmm. That shit better be high, in the thousands. So guess what you just gave a person? You gave a person $1,000 because he was in your head for an hour. Fuck that. I'd rather give that person the benefit of doubt, free him from my mind, and keep it pushing on what I am focusing on and how to build myself and my business. That's the value.
I mean, also too, it's like, also if you ask more whys in life, investigate more whys, it allows you also to eventually own your own story. So for example, if you learn more about what it takes to be the manager above you, or the managers above you, or the CEOs, like really take time to ask more whys when you have opportunity, as opposed to, a lot of times we get around CEOs and we just fall into a state of awe. Ooh, or we won't speak, we're scared to communicate with them. We start saying, hey, why did the company do this? Why did the company do that? Just want to know why. Not a judgmental way why, but just like a why. Those whys empower you now to control your stories. So sometimes you'll say, like, there's some things that happen, I go, look, until I know I don't really have emotion about this. Because I realize the story is so far removed from my story. Because sometimes if you don't know that other people's stories are far removed from your stories, you engage in a form of naive realism, which you say, this is what I would do, so that's what you should do. Mm-hmm. Right? That's that naive realism we talked about last week. Mm-hmm. But if you understand stories, then what you'll realize that if you understand how many versions and different stories there are around you, the more you ask why, the more it helps you engage in the exercise he just talked about, which is, well, you know what, it's out of my pay grade, or, I don't do that for a living, so until I talk to the person, I don't really know what to say, so I'm gonna let it go, right? Or they may do something crazy, you're like, it gotta be a reason. Like, okay, for example, when R. Kelly story landed, it's all a story. I don't know R. Kelly. Now, I'm not going to disrespect women who've been traumatized by playing his music, but I can't pass judgment because I don't know that man's story. And I don't know all the stuff that goes along with that. All I know is a story somebody gave me. So I reserve all real deep feelings about him. I mean, if I saw him tomorrow, I wasn't in awe of him, but I wouldn't be like, you're a dirty dog. I don't know that man's story. So I'm neutral to this dude, right? I may have been more of a fan before. I'm now a little bit more neutral towards him, but I'm not anti him without knowing the story. Because if he had been molested for years and been acknowledged, underserved, no one came to help save him, and then you gave him money, well, that's the making of somebody. You turn a victim can become the abuser really fast. And so, if I'm looking at the reality for what it is, I can't pass that judgment behind stories. And like you said, when you're in offices, the reason many people never rise in their office because they're trapped under all the gossip stories that's happening in the office. And so then they're making all these decisions like, no, I ain't about to do all that. Look, they didn't ask me for that. Look, I only gonna go so far. And before you know it, you're underperforming because all these stories you heard. And then you see this new person come in the company and they don't give a fuck about your stories and they just putting their head down, going to work. And all of a sudden they're your supervisor. All of a sudden now they making crazy cash, their own parking space. Like, what the fuck happened? Because they never victimized themselves by the stories you victimized yourself by.
I have one of my employees. This guy, he's dope. He's amazing, but he thinks he's a economist in his mind. In his own mind, he thinks he's an economist, but he's the most emotional person I have in staff. Most emotional. And so what typically happens is if the team meets, and we have a thing where we can call each other out on anything. Nobody's excluded. So, but if the team meets without me a lot of times, and he leads that meeting, he leads it with these stories, right, of why and this. And so they compound upon the story and then come up with this elaborate solution to come present it to me. And they'd be way the fuck off. So I come there like, yeah, so the customer was upset because this didn't happen. So I think we need to create a whole new system. And I wrote up the system. I wrote the whole system down, step 1 to step 10, so we can present it to him. And I'm like, yo, here's a text. The customer said this was the best experience he ever had. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? And it's like, yo, let's talk facts first. Let's get out our feelings second, and let's get some data to show, because him not answering your call 4 times and him not responding to your text 3 times after that does not mean that the customer is super unhappy. You just wasted hell of time. I hope you did that on your off night, because I'm not paying you for that shit. You know what I'm saying?
But that happens in companies all the time where your employees are going rogue because of stories. They got nothing to do with what the fuck I hired you to do and what our team is assigned to do and what our vision is. Right? And don't get me wrong, that also means that when you're running a company, you also have to be consistent with the story you sell your employees. Because stories have that much power. I'm not demonizing stories. Stories are a very powerful tool, but it's like a wild horse. It's running wild, we're not controlling it. And so we're not riding that horse and building a relationship with that horse and using a horse in a way that serves us. If anything, the horse is just running amok and doing its own thing, and we don't understand our role, how that horse works in our favor, or how that horse can cause damage. And so, in a sense, yes, like he said, that's a common, most expensive problem in companies where employees start to tell themselves a story and they start to act on these stories, and then you have to come in and be like, "What are you guys doing? What's that about?" Mm-hmm. Well, I felt when they said this, what it meant, so what we should do, and so we've already started this process, and we've invested this, and we spent money on your company money, and you're like, whoa.
Time out.
And so you'd be surprised how cold this story game is in business. But number 2, also when you motivating your employees, you got to protect the consistency and the sanctity of the stories you create internally.
I got a question, but it
Go
ain't
ahead.
all the way there yet. So
Okay,
I'm
go
going to keep going. This one came from Ashley. So
Ashley.
this was in regards to market research. And so her question was, it's a 2-part question. Is there a right or wrong way to do market research? 3-part. That's 1. 2, how do you do it? 3, what are the most effective ways to do it? And if I could add a 4th, how does it look differently for entrepreneurs than for a big organization that has a market research team? Can you talk to how it looks to?
Oh, the difference between market research for, okay.
Yeah,
We'll start from the bottom and then work our way up.
sure.
So bottom level, if you're doing market research from the bottom level up, that means you're curious. You're always asking questions. There's never a question too small. Mm-hmm. You talk to your customers and you listen to them to discover, not to impress them. Mm-hmm. That's where we fuck up on. That's where we lose the power of market research. We're so busy trying to impress somebody because we don't feel like we're good enough and validate ourselves. We're not listening. We're trying. Another thing too, we have to learn to remove. This is the hardest one. I'm still even working on listening filters. Listening filter is, I say, hey, court is not performing to a certain level, and your fix-it filter kicks in. Well, what do you need me to talk to court for you? Or let's say you got a defense filter, and I say, hey, court's not performing a certain level. What do you think I got something to do with that? Let's say you have a prove yourself filter. Hey, court's not performing to my level. Well, I never had that problem, right? Learning to turn down the listening filters so you can really hear what that person's saying, not what you want them to say to you that makes you or that fits your filter or your story. So next thing, internet. Observe, pay attention to trends in your market. Listen, and read autobiographies, because autobiographies kind of put you in the head of the people who are leading your market. Next thing, follow pay attention to, learn the customer, the characteristics of the customer that supports your type of business, and pay attention to other things that customers do with their free time. Listen to interviews and conversations. Pay attention to the things that are serving that customer at all times. Mm-hmm. Now, next, create a candor feedback environment for your customers where they feel totally comfortable sharing information, because even bad information is a gift to you. So feedback loop has to be super, 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 super rich. It's a continuum of constant, like if you ever meet young entrepreneurs, when I say young entrepreneurs, meaning you're making under 5 or 10 million a year consistently, netting. Their curiosity level will blow your mind. Their questionings and their why questions are way superior than anybody else. They ask the deepest questions, sometimes the most simplest question, like, should it be I or we? You're like, what the fuck? This is a waste of time. Because they're trying to unlock how to be accurate in how they show up. If you're talking about running a placement campaign, like say you want to run billboards, right? If you don't know where your customer hang out, then where do you place those billboards? Where do you place your marketing material? Where do you invest? If Court comes to you and says, hey, I got this great company, and or Yelp comes to you and say, hey, you know what, if you want to get more exposure, is that where your customer's at? So if you spend money with Yelp, are you spending money with Yelp because you're desperate, or are you spending money with Yelp because you know that's a trend of your customer, and that's where they spend a lot of their time, right? And so once you understand those customers, meet peers in your industry. Meet people in your industry to be able to interview them to discover your customer. And then talk to customers about their why, their motivations. Like literally become a investigating creep. Like I'm talking about, if you could discover what type of toilet paper your customer is using, discover it. Everything you can find out about your customer is critical, because it's going to help you create your virtual customer, and you'll know exactly how to show up to them. Be careful of your own narcissism. What you think is good for me, like for example, how many of you guys get those gifts from family members or friends where they didn't ask you, they just kind of said, hey, I think you'll like this? They didn't even observe you. They didn't even watch you. They didn't even get in conversations with you. They didn't interview you. They just like, I think you'll like this shit. And that shit damn well has been in the closet and is part of your hoarding collection, right? Where a great gift giver will say, hey, I watched you ask for this numerous times. I've seen where you went to the store. I heard you talk about it 1,000 times. You even mentioned if you had it, you'd be so damn happy. I got this for you. Or, hey, what do you want? Now, asking a customer what they want is very close to difficult to none. It's probably the worst thing you probably can do. Because a lot of times, I think it was the soap industry, they thought people were buying clothing soap because it made your clothes super white or super clean. What they found out is that the reason people was buying clothing, buying soap powder or soap liquid, is because when they pull the clothes out of the dryer, they went, that's what made the decision. So they started running commercials where the person would grab the clothes out and be like, it feels so good. That's how the commercial shifted, right? But it took somebody just sitting with customers every day and going, they keep sniffing the goddamn clothes. They're buying our soap to sniff the scent. So then they realized, you could make your clothes smell so fresh by buying our products. And that became the most important. Didn't mean you could become sloppy in his cleaning capabilities, but when you run a commercial, you can't say we're the most efficient organic soap in the market. Matter of fact, if you use the word organic, it implied to the customer it wasn't a good, strong soap. It's probably a weaker soap. And so you had to imply that your soap had the highest level of technology, but it smelled so good. Right? So it's just like you have to learn the customer, because it's really easy to be like, well, my soap is hyperallergenic or whatever, and it's good on the skin, and it's great for babies, and blah, 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 and it's organic, and it's anti-cancer, and da-da-da-da. And you put that shit on your bottle, and people are like, I don't want that shit. Straight up, right? And so at the end of the day, you got to know, pay attention to. That's why I don't like that whole farmer's market. I think it was 3 years ago, he was talking about, I hated farmer's market. Just like a chocolate chip cookie from my favorite restaurants. But don't give me this cookie that tastes like I just ate motherfucking dust and dirt with something sweet in it, and I feel like my mouth has been violated, and I'm drinking water to get rid of this shit, right? That does not translate.
That was it.
Okay, that's it. Okay, cool. Okay. All right, we back. They say YouTube did some weird stuff. How long? Hopefully we were gone for not too long. We're going too long? So, all right, internet is. Okay, so it's not just us. It's a YouTube weird problem we're having. Yeah, this is the beginning. This is the pioneer days of being able to use free or cheaper or using the wide open terrain to share, and yet.
No, it was. It just stopped.
And close. And make sure nothing's open that on our computer. Just that it should be open.
Buffering again.
No, don't end that program. Just make sure nothing else that doesn't need to be open. Everything we just say, okay, so we're good. We're safe. It's not on our side.
Ronnie said it's repeating.
Okay, we figured it out. Look at that. Huh? Look at that. Ain't that something?
Can Shakira talk to her people at Google and tell them to get their ish together?
Ish.
It's the YouTube still active. I'm trying to hold it before we go to the next part. If we do that, quick question I'm gonna ask you is that if we do that part, how's the connection rate? Like it's, I don't think it's on our side. I can't imagine. We're not having, and it's recording though, right? We're getting a copy on our computer, right? Of the class. Ecamm movies.
So Ecamm has been fine. Like that when you're looking at Ecamm stream,
Yeah, but the computer's not dragging.
the computer's not glitching, it's just YouTube.
Okay, so that might be bandwidth issues. It could be, and what side the bandwidth is on, I don't really, on the connections, is that box is plugged in, right? That box is plugged in right there, right? The Orbi. And oh, are you wired in? Just make sure, when it says connection, is it the Wi-Fi or is it wired? Is it the Wi-Fi off or on? In worst case scenario, we do a backup copy online. right, you ready to go and jump into Eagles Enemy? I think we should be okay. Make sure the Wi-Fi is off. Write that down somewhere for me. And write down the channels for the light. Yeah. Yeah. And make sure, can we get a folder to make sure all that stuff is set for troubleshooting? You have a folder, okay. All right.
Online
Okay.
said it's fine now.
Huh?
Online said it's fine.
Yeah, it could have been that Wi-Fi I could have picked up. All right, let's get down. All right, let's go on to the first Eagles Enemy. I'm glad we're back.
You can't learn if you think you already know. You will not find the answers if you're too conceited and self-assured to ask the questions. You cannot get better if you're convinced you are the best.
The worst thing entrepreneurship, it's such a fucking pet peeve when you're around people in a space where they know it all. Fuck,
God,
man,
it's so bad.
because there are so many variables in life and so many options. So if you have optionality thinking, one, and you think and not or, two, that means it's not about it being able to happen or not. It's about which one do we want? What's the easiest one, most efficient, most effective one? And so if you are around people who they just know it, they know it all, it's the most irritating thing because you cut off your ability to grow, you cut off your ability to see what's possible. Like if two entrepreneurs are chopping it up about a subject, by the end of the subtopic, do you know how many possibilities have unfolded with two different ideas and brains and backgrounds? Like, yeah, well, you know what? It could be done like this too. Or what about this? Oh shit, that's dope. And like a lot of times, like we don't prep this shit. We don't prep we both get the slides and we read through them and we match them with the study. But when we get here, most of the time what you see is entrepreneurs compounding on ideas of another entrepreneur. And better ideas come through like, oh shit, that was dope. Boom, here's another one. And he's like, oh shit, that was dope. Here's an idea. And so what we glean from that is more. And so if you think you already know shit and you approach it because you posturing, because you know every fucking thing, you should probably look around and see why like not a lot of people fucking with you.
Listen, there's a full phrase that says, stop. If you think you kind of know, you don't know. So get that out the way. So somebody says, what do you know about this? You're like, yeah, I know. No, you kind of know. That means you don't know. Stop it. That's the first one. Number two, stop personalizing what you know. Some reason we're in a society that says, if you get an A, you're better than the person with a C. You get a PhD, you're better than the person with a master's degree. You get a master's degree, you're better than the person that didn't go to college at all. I didn't finish college. All my friends economically are way worse off who didn't go to college and threw it in my face.
I didn't either.
Yeah, I'm talking about, I have friends who's like, yo, I had this friend call me one night and said, man, Courtney, this is no lie. They said, yo, man, me and a couple couples got together. They was doing that thing where they all get together and they're going to do a reality check for you. This is no exaggeration. Intervention. And they said, hey, we decided to pull our money together and pay for you to go to college because we feel like you need to have that experience. My response, man, you don't get the fuck off my phone. Click. And they were on the phone. Three-way in. This is back in the three, everybody done chimed in. We didn't have no conference line.
Wow.
They all are trapped in these horrible jobs with limited opportunities. Some of them don't even work at all. And it wasn't that the education made them, you make yourself better. And the way you become better faster is you stay humble and curious to this game. You don't ever get to the point you know everything.
Fuck no.
You don't walk in a room and try to play the knowledge status game. Matter of fact, you know how many times people walk in the room and say, Donna, do you know about this? And I'll be like, no, tell me. I know more than anybody gonna tell me. In many cases, I've heard so many things repeated numerous times because I'm looking for something different. I'm looking for you to tell me, just tell me, like, I might be missing one small, I might be missing one word that could just change the whole meaning. Or you can explain it to me in a way that you explain it, and I'd be like, oh, I'm using that. That's amazing. And then you allow me to then take an idea and put that idea to work in my life because I just learned a different way of using it. But I promise you, there's people who get offended by this class because we give them knowledge they don't have. Then they come to us as if, okay, let me tell you how crazy this shit is. People get offended by information we're sharing with them as if we're trying to hurt them. That's how personalized your knowledge is to you. You assume if I listen to Nana, what I'm actually doing is he's threatening my life, my value, who I am, the status. Remember I told you that many of you guys hold on to titles because many of you guys see your value based upon the title life has given you, whether it's doctor, mister, professor, director, whatever that title is, you think that's who you are because in the end, you don't know how to discover personal value yet. So you let other people define your value for you based upon a title. So if I come in that room and I challenge the information that supports the title that validates you, I'm actually challenging you by your definition. The story in your head starts to say, when Nana told me I have to practice radical responsibility, who do he think he is? That story kicks in. I did tell you that, but then you like he thinks he don't know me like he did this, he probably like that because he got money. He that. I hear all that's that story. That's that meaning making machine takes over, and you never learn shit because your ego has one main goal: protection. Protect you. And guess what? Nana's trying to threaten my status, my value, my self-worth. If I get on this microphone, I say, listen, chick, he called me a chick. Do you know how men have oppressed us?
Toxic masculinity.
Toxic
That's
masculinity.
sexy.
Oh my God. Do you know how many racist dudes that have won up my company? I didn't give a fuck because his racism had done. Look, you about to buy my products and you racist? You about to buy my service because you racist? And you gonna pay my maximum price? Man, go home and put your hoodie on. I don't give a fuck. But some of y'all make this shit so, like you guys are so fucking fragile. It's like you in a valley of light of Christmas bulbs. And you just can't wait to crack on these motherfuckers.
And here's where it gets dangerous, is that we already have, a lot of us have pre-programming set inside of us that we were taught when it was time to go in the business world that you got to fake it till you make it. You got to posture. And if you don't know, you fake it. You act like you know. That's one. And then some of our sisters, our women that come into the business world, they already know that it's tough and it's a man, the story is this is a man's world. So I got to really fight and show how tough we are and battle against them. So you have this defensive mechanism toward males in the space, and you also have this fake it posturing that you adopted because that's how you were taught. So what those two things do is that it cuts you off from any growth, any learning. What it does is it exposes you to those who do know, and it allows no space for creativity. Like I said, in our office, we have a anybody can get a policy. Anybody can be checked at any moment. Hey, I need to call you out. I challenge that. All right. And what ended up the benefit for it for me was that for 5 years, I was never a good communicator. Like I'm a reader and a doer. I never was a speaker or a talker.
Which is normal for entrepreneurs.
So it was always difficult for me to verbalize anytime someone challenged me. I just didn't have the words or vocabulary. So over the years of allowing that and being in this class, it allowed me to form my thoughts and verbalize it. Like, okay, cool. Okay, so this is what happened. And over the course of time, I was able to speak on it. And now I look forward to the challenges because it's like practice for me. So that two things going to happen. Either I'm going to learn and we're going to upgrade our whole company system, or I'm going to get to practice articulating that, my response to your challenge.
And read this last. It says, "You cannot get better if you convince you are the best." Let me show you how this plays out in real world, right? Because that's easy. It's easy to understand. Nobody. I don't think nobody at home write down on a board and step it back like the Einstein going, "What is E equals E?" Nobody's looking at it that complex. But let me show you where it shows up that you don't see. Hey, Shabisha, I think that was a bad business decision, and I don't think you really understood what you were doing on that situation. That's just my perception. No, I have a degree. I went to business school. I worked for this company, that company, and I know my stuff. You know what you just did? You said, "I'm the best."
Shit.
That's literally what you just said to me. And it's a common language we use in culture today. People always try to state their value. I went this, I graduated, I know, I did this before. I'm the best. That's how the best shows up.
Yo.
Okay.
Next one.
Ego doesn't allow for proper incubation either.
Ooh, stop real quick. See, ego ain't letting incubation. I don't read that. It said ego doesn't allow for proper incubation either. You know what that's saying? Similar to when you blame people. When you blame somebody, you're not incubating. Court did it. There ain't nothing for me to incubate. There's nothing for it to just sit with me and kind of go into my system and go, "Oh shit, there's no lesson for me." Ego immediately removes responsibility. It immediately says, hey, you don't know what the fuck you doing. Hey, let me deflect. Hey. It doesn't give no room, no time. So you know how many lessons you're missing in your business growth? You know how many lessons you're not picking up? You know how many wise men you told, keep it moving. You don't look right. You're too masculine. Your voice too deep. You're too tall. You're too light. You're too dark. You're too ugly. You're too cute. It's just keep it moving. Whatever. Ego gonna say whatever I have to say. Just keep the fuck moving. Keep going.
To become what we ultimately hope to become often takes long periods of obscurity, of sitting and wrestling with some topic or paradox.
You guys understand that change is not announcements. That's why, bless Shakina, she's not here today. She's at home watching this. I don't want you at my house because the story I'm telling myself is you gonna come scratch my car. But I remember she was coming. I changed. I went to class. I learned some new stuff. I changed. I read this book. I changed. And I used to listen to her like, "You ain't changed shit." But I couldn't say it because I didn't want to be like, I don't want to stab you when you happy as hell because you haven't sat with it. You haven't given a chance to. Look, a change means that multiple other things that complement the old ways now have to change. And so change is the beginning of a process. So once acknowledgement and awareness is the beginning. Change is a long process that has to incubate, you have to wrestle with, and you have to deal with the paradox of it and the web of change. Change is not changing one thing. One thing may change hundreds of things. And then those hundreds of things also threaten habits. So I'm used to hanging out with my girlfriend on Sunday at the bar. That's being threatened now. In the words of Shabisha, these are stories I believe in the community that makes me feel good. They're being threatened now. These are holiday celebrations. These are the things we do around the holidays. They being threatened now. These are the people. This is what I do for pleasure. It's being threatened now. These are things I call myself, or the groups I've joined to validate myself. Shit. It's being threatened now. So then what happens? There's a push and pull, because there's a part of you going, I don't want to change that story. I don't want to change that person. Sure, I like that little cute girl I go see. I love my Cardi B girlfriend. I ain't trying to give all that shit up for nobody. Fuck that shit. No. I'm going to just be the first one to try to do it different than everybody else. I'm going to be different. Cold shit.
I didn't heard that.
This is a great pair. Keep it going.
Humility is what keeps us there, concerned that we don't know enough and that we must continue to study.
You know, we love, like, man,
Bring it, Court.
Whenever I've learned this, and once I learned it, because I started getting positive feedback from it when I was around people who were performing better than me, I started using it more. But once I had the guts when somebody said, "Hey, do you know something about?" And I said, "No, I don't."
People love you for that.
They love that shit because immediately they think this person's honest. This person's willing to forego his reputation of right and smart to be honest. And now I can trust this person. Now I'm fucking with this person. Because now you're going to get the call, "Hey, what do you think about so-and-so? What do you think about this thing?" "I ain't that good." "Hey, why don't you come hang out with us? Why don't you come do business with us? Because I trust you now." Anytime you're around somebody on a consistent basis and they never admit that they don't know shit, or they're wrong, or they ain't got it, or they had a fucked up day that day, you can't, like in business, that's untrustworthy. It's fucking
on, Court.
untrustworthy.
Come on.
Because there's going to be times when we, like the previous slides, we have to show up at a certain level. And if you're not honest, you don't know if you're not showing up because your blind spots are so, you can have blind spots at any moment. So if everybody's in that autopilot mode and not being 100 with you and everybody trying to protect their ego by being right, you fucked.
Yeah, matter of fact, this is so good. This is like, Court gave y'all so much game on this one. When you always trying to act like you know, people realize how much you really don't know. Because those who really know want to know more. Because that's how they got there. So you're not fooling anybody by always trying to be impressive. At the end of the day, too, trying to be right. He said that he brought up the phrase, "You trying to be right." Trying to be right is a psychological flaw. Because quite often when you're trying to be right, it's because you don't feel like you're good enough. This is what, like I said, there's some things that the first 3 months of this class is hard as fuck on me. Because all you got everybody in this class trying to compare if they right or we're wrong. And I want to say to myself, just learn this shit and then research it and then bring it back. But let it sit with you. Folks ain't letting it sit with them. They got a response, "I don't know about that one. I disagree. I heard that before. That's not what I heard. That's what I thought." Does anything sit with you? Or do you just can't wait to be right? See, some of my greatest lessons, some of my greatest changes, I'm talking about when I did a 180-degree change where I went from this way and I went back this way, was things I heard that I absolutely disagreed with, but I sat with it. And when I sat with it, I was like, yeah, that shit might be true. I've been spending all my life willing to die to go here, and because I sat with it and wrestled with it, I now was given the opportunity. By somebody I'm talking to, I'm like, I don't know if I like that shit you just said. And so, your ability to be humble and just listen and sit. Like Shabisha sent me this discussion. It's an hour and 47 minutes. I listened to the whole fucking discussion. I disagree with like 60, 70% of it. But the 30, 40% I did, and the part I disagree with, I sat with it. I'm still sitting with it. And the 30% I didn't disagree with was amazing things I was like, yo, that's hella different. Different ass perspective. But why did I do that? I would listen to Donald Trump sometimes and be like, let me see what here I just strongly disagrees with, and why do I feel so strongly about it? Here's another trick. Write this down. He who see it, does it. He who sees it, does it. Often the things you recognize wrong in society, you do that shit your damn self. That's a cold game.
Hey, there's a passage in the Bible that says,
But we should have. Do we have any religious music? Because he says a passage of the Bible. We got to do this because he is killing it on the Bible. This man, I don't know anybody who got this kind of swag who put scriptures this fast. So we got to have at least some church music, and then he just breaks into it. There's a passage in the Bible. But go ahead.
Amen, brother.
Pastor Chris, don't quote me.
Chris, go be at the front door. I see how it's gonna be.
It's actually Leviticus, or I don't know. I don't know the number.
Yes, Pastor Chris. Yeah.
But I know that there's something in the Bible that, and when I was a kid, I used to say I don't get it because I don't understand it, because it said he who becomes last will become first, and then it says a passage in the Bible about there's a table where everyone sits at this table for dinner, and one guy comes and he sits directly at the head of the table, and he gets booted the fuck up out of there. Because by the person who decided to sit at the last spot in the table, because we like him. Let's put him at the front. So it's saying it's a paradox. It's counterintuitive to think, because we're leaders, but we're servant leaders. So when you lead with that humility, that you're willing to come last, which means you're open, you're willing to listen, you're willing to be wrong, you're willing to sit in the back, you're willing to shut the fuck up and let someone else talk, you're willing to ask questions and understand fully what your customers or whoever is trying to say, then that's how you get exalted, because everyone wants to feel listened to.
Keep going. That finish the last part of that slide.
Ego rushes to the end, rationalizes that patience is for losers, wrongly seeing it as a weakness, and assumes that we're good enough to give our talents a go in the world.
Shortcut Mary. I was talking to a brother the other day, and he's like, "Yo, if you don't teach me something, just keep it short. I don't need all the complex stuff."
Whoa. What the fuck?
And the cool part is, he's a multimillionaire, cocky as fuck, but can't see his flaws to save his life. And yet he would tell you about how he's so mentally stressed and how he's so unhappy. Because at the end of the day, he's that kind of person that I just need it fast. Just give me something. Just give it to me quick. I had this other person, client I'm working with, and I believe the company fired him, but he said he's just moving on. Because he tries to move so quick to the solution. Like, you try to talk to him, you try to process it and kind of like play with an idea and kind of dance around it and look at what are we missing. And he's like, okay, look. Okay, so what you're just saying is this, let's move it forward. But that shit was cool when you worked at McDonald's. But in the real world, when you start your shit, the owner of McDonald's, they can't think like that. You got to get to the point where it's okay to process. It's okay to slow it down. Matter of fact, it's proven if you want to make your best decisions, try to slow your decisions down. If you make fast decisions, all you're doing is you're becoming a victim of heuristics. And you're making all your decisions from what they call the system one part of your brain, which is the fast part of your brain. It's not a super flawed, but quite often it doesn't give great deep thought. And your ego does not like to take its time. Matter of fact, I'll tell you another egotistic question people asked us when we first joined this class. Hey, so I'm going to join this class this week. And how long will it take me for to be successful? What do I need to do? How many more months? Next one.
Access to teachers is no longer a barrier. Technology has done away with that.
Talked about that earlier.
There is no excuse for not getting your education. And because the information we have before us is so vast, there is no excuse for ever ending that process either.
The most important phrase, so we already talked about the education, how it's your job to go get information. Many of you guys can't go get information, not because it's not out there, because your ego. You're scared of rejection. You're scared of what it may make you look like. You got to be seen as intelligent. What if the person you're going to may think they're greater than you and you're not as great as them? All these things, all the stories, not the facts, all the stories you're telling yourself is the wall that stops you from accessing information. Information is out there. That's why I said that this class is teach you how to gain access to the information that's always been there. The only thing that's been stopping you is your ego, right? But the last part of that phrase is so easy to be missed. And say that last phrase, it says, there is no excuse for ever ending that process either. Mm-hmm. Never, meaning that you don't stop. This process is not meant to do it once, twice, or every once in a while. Information is vast. That means you always stay engaged. It just told you, like I told you, I practice an hour and a half a day. Now you see it. This is my motivation. Because the shit I knew when I first started practicing, I won't repeat none of that shit. The shit I learned last year, some of that shit has already been turned over by the new shit. And guess what? This year is already turning over new shit. And guess what? That's who we are. I'm a constant evolution of growth. I am not something. I'm always evolving. And I am no greater than my practice. If I don't practice, I don't perform well. And so if I want to be greater, or I want to perform at a high level, I got to practice like I'm trying to perform at that level.
Yeah. So the separation between degree and education is a huge separation. And the danger of degree is that there's a finish line. You got a piece of fucking paper that said that you accomplished a thing that leads you to this particular field or realm. Being educated, you're never done. You're never finished. It's not over till you're over. So when you're dead, you can stop educating yourself. But in the meantime, our world changes constantly, rapidly. And yes, there's patterns, but if you're not ever evolving and learning within this world as you're building who you are, then it's going to be hard to get there, because what you know now, what you practice now, what you have is a result of it. So if everybody, like all the know-it-alls and the people who are always right, your life that is happening right now, you look around your room, you look in your bank account, you look at your car, you look at your clothes, you look at your finances, your happiness, your well-being. That right now is a result of what you know. So if that's not enough, or if that is at an infantile stage, then that is also where your mind and brain and education is. So be willing and open to upgrade that, and the outside is going to follow.
I mean, there was just another discussion that you sent to us. It was a conversation between these Harvard professor, Stanford professor. I'm not sure the guy was Cornell, the third professor, a filmmaker, and a politician. And one of the arguments they were making, which was these were some highly intelligent individuals. And one of the points they made was, look, we may not know everything, but we don't get somewhere further unless we're willing to have conversations, even in strong disagreement, because we all learn, right? That was a non-egotistical statement. What you hear in our community as often is that I'm right, I know. If you're really knowledgeable, that means if you're really a knowledgeable person, what we just told you, the way you want to, if you really want to say you're knowledgeable, to those who are knowledgeable, we know you're knowledgeable by your ability to constantly learn and your curiosity. If you're not super curious, then you're probably just amplifying a religious, or when I say religious, not religion like Christianity or Islam or anything like this, I mean that you have a religious connection to an idea and you've divorced rationality. Where if you're trying to learn, then you're always trying to examine and explore, because part of knowing, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. So there's no reason to even echo, I know, because if you really know, that means you're super curious to hear something different.
I was going to say something, but you look like you had a question. You've passed through? Okay, I'm going to keep going. So here's another thing, and it may come out wrong or not. It may not come out the way it's spinning in my brain, but this is what it is. It's everything that we know in our current world that we were taught our whole lives was taught by another man or woman. All men and women are inherently human and imperfect. So they are just as flawed as you. So you have to understand also all your truths and everything you know is flawed. It's wrong. It has some wrong elements to it. It's incomplete. Your religion is incomplete. Your math is incomplete. Your business strategy, everything around you is incomplete. It doesn't mean it's wrong. It doesn't mean you don't necessarily follow it or not. You adopt it. But if you know that, then it allows you to give them grace when there's fuck ups, or when your pastor fucks up at the religion or whatever. It allows you to give them grace because you know it's incomplete. Science is incomplete as fuck. Even the highest level of science is physics. You take quantum physics and physics from Einstein. us, the people who study physics, know that all of Einstein's theories, he had only figured out between 5 and 10% of the theory. We run with it like it's golden, like it's Bible. But physicists know their job, because Einstein is dead, is to continue where Einstein left off. And they're like, my goal is just to take it to 11%, 12%. And then I'll probably be dead. If I'm lucky and do that, I'll probably be dead. And us physicists, that's the pact that we have, is to continue to raise the percentage of what geniuses that before us came to uncover. So everything is flawed. Calculus, trigonometry, all the things we do to try to get to the moon, space, or on this planet. So if you move like that, you can read every book on the fucking planet and still be incomplete. And that's the fun part.
And you know what's so crazy about what you just said? Just to bounce that. So everything you said was extremely accurately, rationally aligned, right? Where the ego kicks in. When the ego kicks in, ego's so cold. Ego doesn't care about facts, truth, or consistency. Ego will say, but if you change this, what does this mean to you? Like religion, right? Like a lot of times, I was watching these guys speaking, and the guy said that rationally, you should say the violence of a black person is more endangered by a 6-block radius in the hood than by a cop. Rational. Mathematically, there's no math to dispute that. But the religion of social justice says, I need you to forfeit that rational thinking and surrender to the idea that cops are more important. Right? No matter, I don't turn your rational thinking off. I need you to believe that. So here comes court, and he quotes the facts to you. Hey, Nana, that's not true, bruh. But my ego's tied to the group because my value is tied to the group. So I'm not even listening to your shit, because if I listen to you, that means I disconnect from that group. And that group I'm famous in that group. If I even echo your idea, that group will kick me out the fucking group, because that group says, fuck what you talking about. This is the way we going. So I think you understand, like, the ego is so motherfucking powerful. It strips all this critical, realistic thinking, this accurate thinking from the conversation, and ties you into, well, who would you be if you believe in that shit? You gonna take me away from you? So fuck what you talking about. I'm riding like this. I mean, I started when I was coming up in Christianity. Mm-hmm. Deep down inside, I follow the Bible. Y'all just don't know it because I'm not doing this. But I won't call myself a Christian for a reason. I know this is very personal, and I usually don't go here. But I'm also very transparent to the point that if I'm ashamed of it, then I'm not going to do it for long. Keep it real, though. Because there's been some things I'm like, you know you're wrong for this. Okay, this is the last time. But I'm not going to do it.
Two more times.
But I'm not going to do it, right? Okay. The reason I walked away from the religion wasn't because I thought the Bible was contradictory. I didn't think the Bible was contradictory at all. I thought the Bible was an amazing book. Bible might be, I believe that there is a God. That's just my personal belief. If you're atheist, listen to me. I'm not projecting that on you. What made me walk away from the religion was the cultural group tribalism that was saying, if you don't do it this way, I don't want you to process like Paul told you to do. I don't want you to analyze. I don't want you to learn. I don't want you to take theology school like Pastor Chris did. No, I don't want you to do all that. I just want you to do what we do, right? To me, that's the making of a cult. And so I walked away from the words and the titles, not because I want to shame those who are Christians who follow the title or the religious group. I walked away from it because I realized it was a mental trap for me, where the titles and the names become more important than the act and the purpose and what I'm here to serve, right? And so that's what made me back up. I'm not preaching that for nobody online, and there's some people I think the religion serves, and they need that, right? But I felt for me, it was not giving me, it was taking away choices and optionality and ability to grow and learn, as opposed to me aligning with the team and then my ego being tied to that alignment, and to the point that if court said, hey, don't go off that cliff, I'm like, I don't want to hear you. That's what God told me to do because our religion said that. This is not a threat. Once again, this is not a religious discussion because I'm not anti anybody's religion at all. That's not my position. And that's not something I even focus on in the way I move through this world. What I'm arguing is that we have every day, he said, put no other God before me. We got so many gods in our lives and so many religions in our life that our ego is tied to those connections. And then when court says, hey, this is how you should run your business, I don't know if I can listen to that, court. Don't think I can do that, bruh. I don't give a fuck about the facts you brought up. I don't even want to look at the facts. I'm not going to even go home and open up my computer and challenge you based upon I researched the fact. I heard what you said, and here's the stats I'm looking at. I'm not going to even try to figure out how the brain works. I don't even give a fuck about this reality talk y'all talking about. All I know is, can't do that, bruh. That's what I'm suggesting, how powerful the ego is. Next slide.
But ego makes us so hard-headed and hostile to feedback that it drives them away or puts them beyond our reach. It's why the old proverb says, when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
So go back to, this is kind of tapping the Ashley question. This also tapping to what Court, we've already covered this tonight. Court just said, I know, teachers are walking away. Ashley said, how to improve my market research? Show up as humble as you can. Like our ego is destroying our insights, our research. Like the ego is it's blinding. The ego is like an invisible brain in our head that takes over our normal brain. And like literally, if you don't work on bringing your ego down, you can have the best intent, you can have the highest educational exposure. The word is exposure, not education. The highest educational exposure, and you're still underperforming because your ego will not get out the way. And black people, this is a serious discussion. One of the reasons that ego is one of the major focuses of this entrepreneur course is because we don't feel like we're good enough across the nation. And when you don't feel like you're good enough across the nation, quite often the way you protect yourself is through amplifying your ego. We're not demonizing the ego. Let me be very clear. We're saying you have to domesticate the ego.
Yeah, here's the deal too, is that theoretically we processing this application tomorrow or sometime in the end of the week, somebody's gonna tell you something's not good enough, reject you. You're gonna get that feeling. It's probably about right here. About right here? Right? About right here. And it burns. What that does is your ego is like, holy shit, I gotta protect you. I just been attacked. Defend. So you go, no. Or you argue back, or, oh no, I'm right. This is all the try. The try is, let's take a deep breath in that moment. There is no threat. This person is not attacking me. This person is challenging this idea only. That's it. And if you can do those two things, you could slowly start separating, because the feelings sometimes still come. I've never graduated to where somebody challenges my shit and I'm like, ooh, that felt good. No. So, but it's just, you've trained yourself to go from that feeling to excitement, or that feeling to like, ooh, I might learn something. But it takes time, but it's a separation between that stimulus and response. So first thing is take that deep breath. After the deep breath, you remind that ego, hey, yo, they're not attacking me. They're challenging this idea. And who knows, it might be a better one on the other side of this. So let's listen. Okay, so tell me about it. And that's the practice.
Okay, we're going to do this last slide, but we're going to go out with a bang. Those of you at home, stop what you're doing for a second, because now if you've taken this class, you've had this hit in the gut that's hit you before, but this is about to hit a lot of people in the gut, and I think it's going to be a part 1, and when we come back, we do part 2 when we show back up. So the next one, read it. This is going to be the hit in the gut.
Don't be passionate.
Stop. Follow your passions. Don't you want to? You should always follow your passions. This here is so cold when you learn to see it. When you learn to see it, you realize you'll see it coming all day long, and you'll see the ignorance that follows behind it. But anyway, don't be passionate. Keep going.
Here's what those same people haven't told you. Your passion may be the very thing holding you back from power or influence or accomplishment, because just as often we fail with, no, because of passion.
I'm gonna let y'all sit with that for the week. Those of you who won't. Now, here's the thing: if you sit with it through the week, it's because why? I told you, or because you didn't read the book. I'm gonna stop right here on purpose. And why I'm gonna stop here on purpose? I really want to get to this passion conversation. I think it really deserves some real conversation. But I'm sure defense for a lot of people, the wall just came up. Don't be passionate. Well, then how the hell am I supposed to get stuff done? What's my motivation? Don't be passionate. I can honestly say to you, for somebody, we have a business that works with a lot of large companies, multi-million-dollar firms. I can honestly say to you, what creates most of their ignorance is passion. That passionate person is, okay, if you go into a meeting and somebody is extremely passionate, you already know they are useless to that space. You know why? Because a passionate person is blinded by only what they want to see. You know, there's this thing saying, let's talk about a little bit of real social justice. If I say to myself in my head, I think court is lazy, or court is a hood in, or court is a black dude that just don't perform like most black dudes. Let's say I say some shit like that. My brain will spend only time finding out times when he didn't perform, and he ignore all the times he did perform. We see this in sports all the time. Oh, what's the name is a terrible player. Because you're only focused on the times he did something bad. You didn't see all the great times because your brain literally allows that all to disappear, right? In addition to that, your brain will then eventually build a complete case to validate what you already believe in. So if you believe white people are racist, it doesn't matter if this white person is not racist. Your brain will make that person racist because that's what your brain does. That's behavior science 101. When you're passionate about an idea, you tunnel. And when you tunnel, do you understand how much shit you miss? And you shut off feedback, you shut off communications. You only want to learn things that fit within you literally say, if you don't fall within my passion, fuck off. That's literally what you just implied. Passion is the devil in business. It's the devil in nonprofit. I can't stand passionate ass nonprofits. They are the most ignorant nonprofits I've ever seen. Because you know why? They're more, oh my God. Nonprofits who are passionate focus on what makes them what pleases them to do for people, as opposed to what helps people. Like in nonprofits, it's hard to measure if your idea works, right? Because you like create something like, yo, this is beautiful, and we gave this to 100 people. Rarely can you measure the impact of those 100 people unless you have a really big budget. What nonprofits will do is have parties around the flyer they put together, the website they created, the project they put in the community. And yet they'll say, well, you can't help everybody, plus the problem's ongoing, and we're really just a stopgap. We're not the absolute solution. You come with all these excuses to excuse your fucked up ass business. And the reason I have a fucked up ass attitude towards the nonprofits, because as a for-profit, I can be as passionate as I want about this phone. But if you don't like it, my passion doesn't create the sale. It's just that simple. I'm like, yo, Shabisha, it's the best phone ever. You should have it, blah, blah. You're like, yeah, great. Give me an iPhone. I'm like, I'm not with that Samsung shit. Passion will have you convinced you're doing something when you're doing nothing. Passion will convince you that you're doing good business and you're doing bad business. Passion will convince you that people just was tripping, that's why they didn't support you. Passion will put you in a conversation of passion is so fucked up. It has to be domesticated. We're not removing passion. It has to be heavily domesticated. Number two, passion without purpose is dangerous. Purpose is you serving something greater than yourself. Passion is you serving yourself.
Yeah, that's the key, the domestication of your passion. If you like that wild horse example, because you guys, I could just feel y'all tripping a little bit. and that's good. You're supposed to. You're supposed to be tripping, but passion has its place. If you read the book, you know. If passion has its place, but it has to be domesticated. It can't run wild. And a lot of times, we allow our passion to run wild because in our brain, it's acceptable. It's the right thing to do because passion is everything. Nope, it has to be tamed because once you let passion get outside of facts, data, customer feedback, once your passion voice is louder than those things, that's when it's out of control. Because when somebody says, hey, I don't like that color, but that was my favorite color growing up. My mom died and she passed that color to me.
All my
in
friends
her
have bought
hand.
it.
Like, yo, let's get off that. Because now like I watched a episode of when I used to watch that show with the entrepreneurs, with the deals, investors.
Shark?
Yeah, Shark Tank. And the guy was like, nah, it's not a good idea. He was like, I sold everything for this. And he was like, yeah, still not a good idea. He's like, I lost everything for it. My wife, my home. I'm the 100,000. And he's like, yo, I don't care. It's a bad idea. Because a lot of times we will allow our passion to be the driver and be in the driver's seat. And then you'll get to a space where you're so deep, like it's tough.
My nephew, just real quick, I'm gonna close on this point. If you want to close out, Shabisha want to close out, whatever. My nephew built this underwater cycle, where you cycle underwater, and it's supposed to be good health for you. So he's been passionate about it, and I've been trying to tell him, calm your passion down. He's asked me to invest. I was like, I'm not investing in you because you're too fucking passionate, right? So he invites me to try the bike out. So I go to the swimming pool, I get on the bike. That shit was like jerking every joint in my body, right? He goes, I built the paddles. The water's probably not deep enough. But I'm telling you, it's a great idea. I think it's gonna be. I said, it's a horrible idea. It's only so many fucking swimming pools. There's a market cap. The price you're selling it for, once you flood that market, is not even like, what the fuck are you talking about, right? Number two, this is a poor ass design. But he's so passionate, he doesn't innovate on design. He doesn't think about a larger market. He doesn't understand, like, he's not seeing any of the business. And we when I bring it to him, and he's like, what do you think about my logo? I said, your logo fucking sucks. It looks like a martial art logo, like it's a fucking star I'm gonna throw across the room and kill people. And he's like, oh, what do you mean? I love it. It's the greatest thing in the world. I was like, nephew, why do you stop loving shit? Like, what is your motivation for loving it? Because I love it. That's passion. Passion don't give a fuck about. Look, I run a branding firm. The companies I support make money you dream of. But he won't even listen to me. He only listens to people who shares his passion. And the people who shares his passion are nowhere near qualified. And he created a product that he spent years. No, we're not talking 1 year, 2 years. 5 years of his life has been around one idea that he's given everything. And 5 years in, the product looks like he invented that shit last night, and he woke up and he's like, yo, let's try this. I think I can work something out, right? But his passion has slowed everything down, and he's burnt more relationships. And the only people that respond to passionate people are depressed people. Depressed people will become your greatest audience. Now, don't get me wrong. Depressed people is a big market if you can do it right. But what you'll find is you'll find a small group of depressed people that will surround you and be like, no, you know what? Fuck them other people. They don't see you for who you are. You know what? You really special. God called on you to do this. I felt in my spirit you should have been here. You should go ahead and continue to make this fucked up ass bike. I'm telling you, son, at some point the waters will come together. And if Moses split the water, maybe he'll split the water and allow this fucked up ass bike to work right. No, that's your fucked up ass passion.
Nope.
Passion is a cold ass game.
If you build it, they will come.
Passion.
That is the saying, right? Us entrepreneurs bid on that. And us entrepreneurs who bid on it, lost. Because just because you built that shit, they don't mean they gonna come.
They ain't fucking with you.
So you have to build something that is appealing to them or they or that crowd. And you have to let them know that it's there. Like that shit is a myth. So I love these classes. They're controversial. It completely is counterintuitive to the way we were thought, but this is how we grow.
Most people who preach in passion have never built anything. Most people talk about follow your passions. You got these life coaches. They ain't never. You know what life coaches is? Business is you. Those who don't know anything. So they'll come up to you like, "Hey, I'm a life coach, business coach, an entrepreneur, teacher. This is what I do for a living. Follow your passions." Go look at those numbers of the people's success rate. It's hella extremely low. And like, you have to be brave to be an entrepreneur because the numbers are against you. You have to have a vision that's pulling you forward. You have to have an impossible purpose that drives you. But passion is the extreme version of all that. It's to a point where you hating on me if you disagree with me. You don't want to let a brother shine if you disagree with me. You don't see what I see if you disagree with me, right? Those comments are all cop-outs. Of course you can't go to a car mechanic and talk to them about the vision of building a psychology company. No, that's not proper. But if you're talking to psychologists and then other domains that are complementing to your business, and they're all like, what? That's a horrible idea. And you're like, I don't care. I understand taking the path of least resistance, and sometimes the path with resistance have a higher payout. But even that requires you to navigate it with low passion and more strategy and more willing to change and compromise. When you get to the point, I won't compromise because I believe in this stuff, you're dead. Dead in the water. You think you want to say Shabish before we go? We good? Fort, you good? I'm working my heart. All right, y'all. Hey, we'll do the best I can. All right, y'all. Have a good night.
Hey.
I didn't want to do it wrong. Like,